Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Flat Earth Sage, brand new patron, so big shout out to you first and foremost. Goldie McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Case, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Jolly good.
What's with the ball busters entrance? No Master B?
Oh, right. Did I forget to put it in Master B? Done.
Which there is a ball busters today, I see. Thank God.
No. Well, there is a QE live show today, isn't there?
Yeah, I think he's going over Coriolis.
Really?
I don't think they're ever going to get it. The Coriolis effect, cause, whatever you want to call it. I don't think these ballers will ever get it.
Or to get it is to understand that Earth's not turning underneath anything as claimed.
Correct. Discord, you there?
One guy in there.
Well, this is going to be a fascinating pre-show.
That's right. Don't worry about it, Neil. It's all good. What's going on with my
That could be
recording?
canon tomorrow.
My recording's glitching. That's not a good sign. Sorry.
All right, well, work on it. You got 18 minutes or so.
I might have just
I mean, they
accidentally
could
knocked it or
remove.
something.
Oh, sorry.
Might have just pressed a button I shouldn't have. Seems okay now.
What are you going to say, John?
I was going to say they could remove aliens from canon tomorrow too. You know,
Aliens aren't canon. What aliens?
Well, that's the story. That once you uncover why they didn't go, and they admit, well, they haven't admitted yet officially, but unofficially, there's an admission that was faked, and they were on the dark side for a purpose.
We're skating
So
grey
that
area
has-
here. This is unofficial canon then.
Yeah, I mean, think about it when we were kids and our parents caught us lying. I'm sure you can think of a few times. We
Plenty.
weren't doing that. We were, I remember one time we wanted to shoot I think it was a BB gun. It wasn't even anything too big of a gun. And the guy, it wasn't mine, it was my friend's. He says, hey, let's go shoot. Let's go to my house and get a gun and go shoot at some targets. So we go to the house and the grandmother was there. And we can't get to the gun because of the grandmother. So the kid goes, there was this fire off about like 20 miles away in the hill. You can see the fire on the hill. He says, don't you care? This is the kid. He says, don't you care, Grandma? we're going to shoot the dirt in front of the fire and cause the dirt to turn the fire off. And you don't even allow us to help the firemen. And this is where he went with the story. I'm like saying, wow, that's a BB gun that's supposed to do all that?
That's
Oh,
weak.
gosh.
Weak sauce.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just to think the stories that stick it to us as a kid, that one has stuck with me all those years because it was so stupid. I mean, we really wanted just to go shoot the targets, but the guy had to lie about it. So then he tried to make the grandma feel guilty, and grandma didn't even blink. That's what they're doing.
Tell a lie,
The only
make it
thing-
big, and keep saying it.
Hey,
What?
Brian.
The Nazi said, isn't it? Hey,
It's Goebbels, isn't it? Is it propaganda? Is he propaganda minister, Goebbels?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
yeah. Tell a lie, make it big, and keep saying it. I don't know if it was him or Hitler, but one of them.
It might have been Hitler, but same sentiment of propaganda, isn't it? Might have been Hitler.
Well, he was his spokesman, so it could have been both or it could have been one, but he has to pay homage to the guy. So
Either way, Brian's spot on. Make the lie big. Keep saying it as many times as you possibly can. If someone catches you out in the lie, keep saying the lie.
And then you have the Clinton defense.
You have the what?
the Clinton defense.
Oh, it depends on what your definition of is.
Right. Just as long as you don't accept that you did anything wrong, they can't prove that you did anything wrong.
Oh, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. That is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think that's what he's
that
talking
and other things. Yeah.
what he defines as sex. So
Well, have
yeah,
you noticed when they give an apology for something on television, it just ruins their career? You know, anybody, when they just say they're sorry for something, it's because that's an admission that you did something wrong. So then people are justified in destroying you. So if you just never admit it, you never did anything wrong.
Doesn't always work though, does it? And you've got to go some to keep your name in the. If you're trying to keep your name in the limelight, to keep your name in the limelight through the dirt, maintain your head just above the water, to then have enough people forget so you can come back at a later stage. But that takes a lot of energy, right? And maintaining a complete lie. Although I've lost complete interest now. The Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial is a fairly reasonable example of that. Although I haven't watched any of the video coverage after the trial ended, what I see from the thumbnails and headlines is that she's doing exactly that, maintaining the lie. And you're like, everyone's heard the recordings of you beating up your husband. You're going to carry on maintaining the idea that you're the abused one? That's nonsense. And everyone knows it. But as you say, the moment she says, I'm sorry, I lied, I made up a whole abuse narrative, that's it. She's cast to the wolves forever, isn't she?
Yep.
No, I think that might actually help her in the future, but right now she's going to keep going with the lie. That's what narcissists do. They keep pretending that nothing's wrong.
Yeah, just maintain the lie. We see it all the time. I know there's no way of telling if the people who come here are narcissists or not, short of sticking them in an fMRI machine and giving them a series of questions, watching their outputs and monitoring the results. We can't really say. But the behaviour is exactly that, isn't it? You've been caught with your own words, contradicting yourself, disagreeing with your own point that you're trying to prove. Where'd you go from here? I'll make the original point again. If I've disagreed with it and contradicted it, well, that's the point then. But that disagrees with the point you've just made 30 seconds ago that was in contradiction to that point that you're now reasserting. Well, then that's the point. And so it goes on. Just never admit that you're wrong. Never concede. How rare is it to get a concession here? An actual concession?
Well, sometimes it's even more complicated than that. They have their own definition of one word, while we have the other definition, the only definition of that word, let's say, or the one being used in the context that we're talking about. And then they'll go on for minutes, if not longer, defending as if the word means opposite of what we're saying and feel comfortable. not conceding, not doing anything.
You assume they feel comfortable.
Well, again, if they're self-deceived, we're the ones who are uncomfortable. They're comfortable. They're living a lie, and they're comfortable in the lie, and so they can sleep at night saying we're crazy, we're this, we're that. But in reality, the cognitive dissonance and all the things that have kept them in this place where they can't have a dialogue and realize, well, here we've got two kinds of gravity, right? At least at this point, Einsteinian and Newtonian. Look at the back and forth we're going with that. Which one are they on when we're talking about it? But I mean, we don't hold them down to it. We're not even sure we're even talking about gravity.
I mean, again, I think you say that it's to help him sleep at night. But again, I keep referencing this, but Conspiracy Cat's interview with Haunted House, he's explaining the cognitive pain that he goes through night after night in the third person. But he's describing it, having to contemplate it. And I agree that the motivation is to shut us up so that they don't have to consider it as often. But getting rid of us, shutting us up, stopping us from pointing out where there's contradictions in their own stories, won't help them sleep at night.
Yeah, to the ones who haven't lied to themselves as strong as, I mean, if you're strongly, if that's a way to describe it, or let me say the limits of how lie can fool you, if they're at the highest limits, then they're not even aware that they're living a lie because they've already gone there. But if they're in between, well, you know, what if I'm wrong? Now, yeah, those people aren't sleeping at nights. They're thinking about it. They can be totally lying to themselves, thinking everything they have is real, and we're the nutcase, and we're the ones who can't sleep at nights. They can actually believe that.
In some ways, I think that's the other end of it. You know, once you realise that we're not going to be shut up by your great argument that contradicts us, what have you got left? Well, make the person's life a misery, and then they suffer the same that you're suffering when you're contemplating it all night. Well, I'll harass them to the point where they've got something to contemplate. And it's like, okay, no, I'm at one with this. I really don't give it a second thought. You do. That's why you're here day after day. Talking to you, Professor Phil Bell.
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting context now that you put it that way. So we have a show on the nature of our reality called Flat Earth Debates. Anyone interested in the subject could come in and discuss the merits of it and how to discuss it with people and maybe even in debate form. But then we see these trolls coming and they're just hanging on like barnacles onto the bottom of a ship. And I'm trying to think, do I do that with a subject that somebody else is adamant about? Do I go, I mean, I don't think I do. I mean, I don't think well, first of all, I don't. So I'm not on any channel acting like a troll and not willing to come and debate on their show or anything. But these guys do it daily. You know, it's like, what possesses them to come to this show, a topic they don't like, they don't agree with, they totally 180-degree difference to it, and act the way they act.
What I remember, if I go back a few years now, the way, and it still happens today, I'm sure, because it's been a while since I debated people around one-on-one, but what I remember is being in things like Discord and other places, Jose's and that, and they'd make a point, and you'd have to agree with what they say, as in they're correct within the paradigm that they're, let's say, quoting from or whatever. They're correct within that paradigm. But then when you go to point out, when any flat earther went to point out, but when we go, yeah, I agree with that. But when you go, but, and bring a bit of reality into the situation, as soon as you give them what used to happen, as soon as you give them the concession that they were correct, as they were within the paradigm, begging the question paradigm, whatever it was. We can go. This is the same now. Go back even to 2015. I remember it. They would then not want to hear anything. It shut you down and hand wave away at, and you have to say after that. So their version of a debate was to get you to agree to something that was correct within their paradigm. And you'd have to agree because it's correct. If you don't agree, you're a liar, or you're whatever. So you'd have to agree that what they say is correct within their thing. And then after that, they wouldn't want to hear anything because
Right.
you
In other
already
words,
agreed to.
They would say something words to the effect of, would you, Brian, a flat earther, agree that in the globe earth paradigm, earth turns underneath to cause Coriolis deflection? Would you agree with that, Brian?
Yes, I would.
Right, well then, we're not going to hear any more words from you. Anything you say hereafter is going to be shut down and we're going to talk over you because you've just accepted the globe earth paradigm.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I went, but, and you didn't leave me say a word. And that was the thing. You know, those three little words, begging the question, that changed so much. Thanks to QE, that changed so much. Begging the question. I know he wasn't the first person to point it out, but because he used it in debate for so long against evolution types, that he was well aware of it.
Well, I can say it how it used to roll off. It's like, if the Earth is spinning, we'll observe this effect. And if you say you don't observe it, right, then they would argue about everything moving together. But it was still rotating, you know, either way, whether it was rotating underneath or it was rotating together. As long as you was arguing about rotating, that's all they were worried about.
Yeah, they always brought up the sniper thing and the bullets, and that's the only thing they could ever bring up. And then, are you denying that snipers exist? That's the next thing. When you say no, right, or you try and disagree with because it's a bullet, you can't see a bullet, right? It's just a claim, mathematical claim based on another mathematical claim. But when you then try and argue against it, what you were told is, so you're saying snipers don't exist. It was a straight straw man, straight away. You know, they were using an implication that was like 10 times removed. That's what they do. That's what they used to do. You know, and these are the people who still look for a fair debate.
Well, it's a little hard to not do some of the things they do when their geometric horizon is beyond its limitation of their 3959 radius that they need. Brought John over, right?
Yeah, once it got progressively quieter as we took more and more of their argument away through logical inconsistencies. And as Brian said, things changed when we realised that saying if the Earth's a sphere at the beginning of your statement doesn't mean that when your opponent agrees that if Earth's a sphere, then what you say should hold true, only to have the but it doesn't cut off by your opponent. Victory declared, everyone pats each other on the back. That's why this show exists. Me going out on the circuit while everyone's like, you're in your echo chamber. It's like, yeah, talk to me 7 years ago when I was going around here, there and everyone else's show, having my volume turned down, and as Brian describes, cut off the moment you clarify that their understanding of their position is correct, or they misrepresent their own position. You try and reposition what they should be claiming based on what the globe claims, and your attempt to reposition what they've got wrong turns into, so you're saying that planes drift then? No, you just denied that, and I'm repositioning it how the globe claims it. Well, then you're saying that Earth, blah, blah, blah. That's what I used to get when I was out on the circuit. So yeah, the people who come for 30 seconds and see a show that's been running for 5 years plus and go, you don't go anywhere. Yeah, I do. Less and less so as time's gone on and I make my living from the show. But the show exists because of me going out on the circuit and not getting a fair crack of the whip. Sitting on a panel with 10 people who literally aren't listening to you because you've been muted. Why? Well, because you don't want to be heard, right? Me challenging anything you've got to say after your affirmation that the Earth's a sphere doesn't want to get heard. Here, they want to talk through it also and moan when it doesn't happen. So I want to challenge somebody saying that Earth turns underneath aeroplanes and the aeroplane's got a magic Coriolis button to account for that. I want to take that to shreds. But they want to reasonably interrupt me while I take their crap to shreds that we've heard hundreds and hundreds of times. Because that's what they really want when they say it's not reasonable, you interrupt immediately. It's like, what, in a 10-minute clip? When the guy's been here for 2.5 hours telling us about how Earth turns underneath planes and bullets and suddenly it doesn't turn underneath planes when you point out that shortens flight times. Yeah. By the time the guy's been here for about an hour, he's not going to get 2 or 3 words past me without me pointing out that he's contradicting himself. But in isolation, they just want to moan about that. Oh, you haven't given the opponent a fair crack of the whip to tell us about how Earth turns under planes.
Well, it sounds like the original mute button was the first part of your story where they cut your mic off. There, you admitted it. Now they're accusing you of it, but the way you do it is saying, wait a minute, you made a claim, we just killed it, you need to concede before we go on. So, and this is where I think people might get confused. You overtalk them, and you do, because they just want to roll past that point. They just lost, and you're saying, no, you need to make us, you either defend it or you concede it before we move on. And they accuse you of, muting them, whereas before it was the other way against you. Am I right in understanding that?
Yeah, other than the fact that you wouldn't get an opportunity to actually make your claim or argument heard. It would just get shut down immediately as soon as you started to challenge anything that they hold as dear and true. I.e. anything against globe claims would be shut down immediately. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. Excuse me. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Refracted Curvature, Brian's Logic, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Hello. Hey, good afternoon.
Hello, good to have you all. In the pre-show, we were chatting about some of the old stuff that used to go down in Flat Earth Debate and outside of Flat Earth Debate before it existed. And I'm hoping we can discuss some of the fallacies that we had used against us back then, and maybe put them into a bit of a top 5. Is that all good by you guys?
Yeah.
So, Brian, you started off with one that you said was pivotal in terms of the change of tone when it comes to debating globe believers. Let's call them at this stage. Do you want to repeat that and we'll go from there? Thanks.
Yes, begging the question. Do you want me to give the rendition, Nathan, of how it would take place?
Feel free, yes, please.
What would happen back in 2015 and 16 is they would beg the question, and you would have to agree to what they say as it was correct within their paradigm. But then when you tried to give a rebuttal, because you agreed, they would drown out any rebuttal and just state that you've already agreed it as the globe. And that's what they would do, because they were begging the question. But when it became a known thing that begging the question was a continuous tactic that they were using, thanks to QE. Although he wasn't the first to point it out, but he used it himself in debate for years before Flat Earth. That once he pointed out that is what's known as begging the question, as they're pre-assuming their outcome, that changed absolutely everything.
So Brian ended with pre-assuming your outcome. So as an example that's outside of the subject matter, if I am to assume that Narnia is a real place that we can visit, then my argument will start, if Narnia is real, then we will be able to visit Narnia via a travel method called wardrobe. So my premise starts with the outcome being assumed. If I'm trying to prove that Narnia is real and I start with, if Narnia is real, that's begging the question, assuming the very outcome you're trying to prove. And all globe claims start with the assumption that Earth is a sphere. If Earth's a sphere, then we'll observe blah, 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 blah. We observe blah, 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 blah. Therefore, Earth's a sphere. So that's one of them. Ad hominem fallacy. I think it's the most overused fallacy that we have to encounter here. Anyone want to pick up on what an ad hominem fallacy is? And I'll explain it for the audience.
Offering
You
an
just
insult
don't
in the place
understand.
of an actual argument.
Offering what instead of a reply to the argument?
An insult.
Perfect. An insult in lieu of a rebuttal. So my argument is that if Narnia is a place we can visit, then we will traverse wardrobes to get there, and we can traverse wardrobes to get there, therefore Narnia is real. That's my argument. So anybody got a response? Hopefully calling me an idiot.
You're an idiot.
Right, perfect. So my argument has form, but the form hasn't been addressed. What has happened is I've been called an idiot. Well, that's not a rebuttal to my argument that if Narnia is real, we can enter Narnia through wardrobes. We do enter Narnia through wardrobes, therefore Narnia is real. You're just calling me an idiot. That's an ad hominem fallacy, aka an insult in lieu, this is the most critical part, of a rebuttal. So just calling somebody an idiot isn't an ad hominem fallacy. Somebody who's put an argument to you that you ignore and call them an idiot is an ad hominem fallacy.
Ready for the false dichotomy yet?
I would say that's going to be top 3, so you might as well do that. Yeah, go ahead. So false dichotomy fallacy, John. What's that?
It's when you offer up two positions, but there's more than just those two positions to take, or it's misrepresenting your opponent's position with your position.
Yeah, so you've thrown a couple of other elements in there that are also fallacious, but the overall structure of a false dichotomy is to hold two positions against one another, and the one that's held as the correct one is the one that's proven to be true in that specific set of circumstances with one position versus the other. Well, neither position might be true, and there might be more positions. So stacking them up in a false dichotomy if it's 2, or trichotomy if there's 3, and so on and so forth. There might be more positions, neither position might be correct. And as John's thrown into the mix also, the position that's being held up might not even be your position. So their position is Narnia is real, and they say comparatively concave Earth versus Narnia. And you go, hold on, I don't claim concave Earth. Well, we're going to be holding it up against Narnia anyway, because false dichotomy, there's only two choices here, Narnia or concave Earth.
Well, I actually had an example, the models that would be brought up. Let's say, how does that work on a flat Earth model?
Right. Yeah, that's spotting it at the subtlest earliest stages, which is to say, before they've really positioned it, asking you that question forces you to answer a question that has their model versus your model as the base of the fallacy being used, right, John?
Yeah, but the most interesting part about that, it was when they were bringing it up, was it was our model against our model, and they were claiming one of our models.
Hold that under your belt. We'll come back to that. So I want to cover stereotyping fallacy last. But before we do, I've used it once or twice already, which is the affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. And I've left this till near the end because it ties in with one other fallacy, which is the begging the question fallacy. So just to break down the affirming the consequent, and then we'll do stereotyping, and then we'll summarise all of them and put them in a top 5. So affirming the consequent is to take a premise that you assume in this instance. So begging the question of Narnia, I assume Narnia is real. And if Narnia, as I assume, is real, then we traverse wardrobes. We traverse wardrobes, therefore Narnia is real. If P, Narnia is real, then Q, travel via wardrobe. Q, travel via wardrobe, therefore P, Narnia real. That's called an affirming the consequent, or formal logical fallacy known as affirming the consequent. Formal, because it's got form. The form being if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. Anybody got anything to add on affirming the consequent? Or do you want me to just give a globe example and move on to stereotyping?
Well, they
Is it
rarely
like
give
when
the full
is it like when
fallacy.
you say the sorry?
That's correct, John. Go ahead, one deck.
I was just confirming. Is that like the same thing as because the stars appear to move? They presume that we live on a globe. Is that?
Yes.
Is that the example?
Perfect example, because I can give John's example within that. So that you wouldn't even necessarily have to say more than a few words, therefore not give the formal logical fallacy its true form. So you just say, star rotation, idiot. And what you've actually done is 2 fallacies. That would be an ad hominem fallacy, given before the rebuttal even comes, and star rotation, duh. Well, what does that mean? Because they're not actually giving it as a claim, are they? They're expecting you to have enough understanding of what they're saying to extrapolate out their formal logical fallacy, which is as follows. If the Earth is a sphere rotating, we will observe star rotation. We do observe star rotation, therefore Earth's a sphere rotating. If P, Earth a sphere rotating, then Q, star rotation. Q, star rotation, therefore P, Earth rotating. So it's if P, then Q, Q, therefore P, a formal logical fallacy. You don't need to form that if your opponent's got a reasonable understanding of your position. In this case, star rotations claim to be caused by Earth turn, Coriolis drift, Earth turning beneath the stars. So you don't have to say all that, or say, if Earth's a turning sphere, then we'll see the stars moving because we're moving beneath. We do see the stars moving because I assume we're moving beneath, therefore I prove we're moving beneath as a turning sphere.
But if you, the problem with that is that it leads to you as the opponent, if you don't know what they're doing, to basically agreeing to a reversal of the burden of proof, because you end up as the more naive opponent trying to prove that it's not the stars rotate, not that don't rotate. The star rotation is not due to Earth rotation. You know what I mean? It's like it's their claim when they say star rotation. They're begging the question. It's up to them to prove that the Earth is rotating at that point.
Right.
But
so that's multi-layered. So you've added
Yeah.
an extra fallacy that I wasn't going to necessarily throw in there. But reversal of burden tends to be something that a more advanced debater would use. If my opinion's correct, I would say that's the case, but you might disagree. I don't care. But either way, reversing the burden, as Brian's just detailed, is where you take something like the example that we've just given with an affirming the consequent. If Earth turns, then we'll see star rotation, therefore Earth turn. But you reposition that one layer lower in fallacy terms and say, why do you explain, or how do you explain how the stars are rotating? What's your explanation for it? Now, the reason that's a burden of proof reversal fallacy because you may not make any claims about why the stars do what they do. Have you made a claim about what the stars do, or have you postulated it, or have you put it down as a claim? No, but they do. The Globers claim that they've got the cause of that movement of the stars. It's Earth turning beneath. That's their claim. So they reposition their positive claim that's not proven and actually asserted with fallacy to being your issue to solve and justify. It's like, I haven't made a claim about what the stars do. That's your stupid proof that doesn't work out of Coriolis. Why am I having to explain why the stars rotate? I don't know. I'm not making a claim about it. You are. But they flip the burden. They reverse the burden onto you having to explain why the stars do it. And early days in Flat Earth, everybody, including me, fell victim to it. oh, I've got to suddenly explain why the stars do what they do because the globe claims that they do it because the Earth's turning, so therefore I better come up with an explanation for it. No. Challenge them to prove why they say it with some sort of evidence that that's the case, not just assuming that Earth's turning in the first instance and that the thing you have observed is a proof of that thing you've assumed. And then because you've assumed it and you've looked at it, it proves it. No. Definitely not reasonable to then say you should be justifying how that is working based on their claim that it proves something they're claiming, i.e. globe turn. So that's the last before. We're going to have 6, unfortunately, but there we go. Maybe have a top 5 out of it. Maybe drop ad hominem. Stereotyping fallacy. Does everyone know? Does anyone want to have a bash so it's not just me talking?
It's like where they tie you with the same brush as somebody else, or presume that you are something.
Hello.
Or
Yes, that's correct. Hey, Arwin. What what region of the country are you from, One Deck?
Manchester.
So you're a thief then?
Yeah. yeah.
So that's a stereotyping fallacy, also kind of racist or whatever. Not racist, prejudice in whatever way it is, it doesn't matter. But stereotyping meaning that everybody who's from Manchester is a thief. Obviously not the case. It's a very nice place. There's plenty of rich people who don't rob from you in Manchester. It's total nonsense, in fact. It's a major city. So, yes, it's got crime. It's a major city, but not everybody in Manchester's a thief. But because there's a high crime rate, or higher than maybe the average across the country, you can infer, by stereotyping fallacy, that all Mancs are thieves. Yep. So all flat earthers believe Earth is a pizza rising up at 9.8 metres per second squared through a sky vacuum with boats falling off the edge of it. You believe that because you are a flat earther, don't you believe that? Now let's argue about how your pizza pie compares to my globe. So that's false dichotomy and stereotyping fallacy. Any more to add on this? And then we'll stick them in a top 5.
Well, yeah, because every time they bring up the globe claim, they're actually stealing our claim of a celestial sphere with a flat plane. So
okay,
they don't actually have a model.
Let's break that down. So originally, before globe even existed, there's a model known as the celestial sphere model, still used today. Look it up, the ephemeris. But that model is an angle measurement to Polaris. So as you back away from Polaris, it'll drop towards the horizon in angular terms by 1 degree for every 60 nautical miles, I believe. Is it 69 nautical miles, 60 statute miles? Either way, it's an angle reduction. So i.e., what you're measuring it with a tool that's measuring 2 straight lines decreases towards the horizon as you back away from it. Now, using the tool that's like a protractor, a curved edge around it, you can draw the lines, the baseline, 0 to 180 degrees. That's the ground you're standing on. And then you can draw another line up to however many degrees the star is in the sky. Polaris, in this example, at 45 degrees for the sake of argument. Well, that is an angle with a curved edge tool used to get the angle, the 2 straight lines. Now, the tool is referencing the ground, which is 0 to 180, the flat baseline, and the line up to the star. Well, that can be derived by a flat plane and then put into a perspective view known as the celestial sphere. Now, that is a model of your view of the stars at any given location. So, with that in hand, you can then take it one step further and say that the outside edge of the tool that you're measuring represents you moving physically around the measuring tool. Ergo, the ground that you've just measured on the tool as a 0 to 180 degree flat baseline is now the ground that represents the tool itself. So it's not that you're measuring 2 lines coming closer together, i.e. the star moving towards the horizon. Now you're backing around a curved edge, the edge of the tool you just used to get this effect measured. Therefore, the assumption goes from flat plane in the celestial sphere model to curved surface if you represent the surface as the tool you've just measured that derivation or drop towards the horizon with. Therefore, to conclude John's point, the celestial sphere model has been utilised to create a curved edge in line with the tool you use to measure that flat plane and give you the perspective view of the stars. So the heliocentric sphere Earth model was derived from the flat plane model. Therefore, when John explains, this is long-winded, that you've got a false dichotomy that uses our model, he's talking about the derivation from flat plane celestial sphere model to globe Earth outside edge of a tool model. Both flat plane models to begin with, both required elevation angles off a flat plane with a tool that happens to have a curve that's later going to be called the surface. Therefore, false dichotomy with two flat Earth models at the heart of the fallacy. Right, John? Hopefully that's a good enough summary. Not bad.
Oh, that was glorious. Yeah, that's the hilarious part.
They're
that's
reifying
the same
the arc scale of the sextant, or sorry, one second. They're reifying the arc scale of the sextant or protractor into a curved Earth surface. That's what they're doing.
Spot on. So their globe model is a flat Earth model. It's derived from measurements from flat planes. Go ahead, Wandek.
Yeah, I was just saying, so like the 15 degree per hour movement or drift they claim is of the globe, that degree measurement was obviously measured with an angle measurement from a flat baseline.
That's correct.
Which will take the globe away straight away because you've measured it from a flat surface to get the angle measurement in the first place.
Right, so if you watch the sun move towards the horizon, you can say how many degrees it moves as you measure it through your tool. As it reaches its sunset point, it's almost at 0 degrees on your tool. Okay, so we've got 0 to 90 degrees being from the horizon to the point above your head for the sun. Okay, so you're measuring it, dropping angle towards the horizon. Okay, now just imagine that what's actually happening is you're stood on the top of the protractor, and what's happening is you're not measuring an angle decreasing towards the horizon. Now the protractor's turning with you stuck to it. And that's what's happening. It's a degree of turn on the protractor, not a degree of you measuring it off a flat plane with a tool that can only work that way.
Yeah, you already pointed out it only goes up to 90 degrees. Not even the 100 and not even 91. It's always 90 degrees, no more than that. Because they like to beg the question that the 16 nautical miles times 360 degrees will give you the radius of the Earth. It doesn't work like that. The 16 nautical miles is only from roughly 15 degrees above the horizon to the 90 degree, no further than that.
Yeah, the angular movement of the sun is basically an azimuth degree measurement. That requires a flat plane from north to east to south to west.
Timing as ever from 10th Man. So this is the depiction of the sun's movement as I've just described it to you. So your position is here, and you're measuring this blue line, and that's going to represent your protractor. And as you watch the sun from your zenith above your head move towards the horizon, it's going through the degrees, the two straight line measurements, on a protractor. That's how you measure it. This is you. But if you then say the protractor, the curved arc of that tool, is actually the surface, and you're stood at the top of it, and as you spin it, the sun moves because you're spinning. That's a way of bastardizing an angle measurement to give you the azimuth, aka azimuthal equidistant projection. That map is just a measurement of the angle measurements of the movement of the sun that you can represent from a given central location. In that case, North Pole, I believe. That's all it is. So that's what you're measuring. Doesn't mean you stood on the outside edge of the tool, but that's what the globe Earth is. Thanks, 10th.
You're welcome.
Is there any... Sorry, one day, come on.
No, nobody said anything.
Oh, sorry. Is there any real world measurement or any measurement that you could call anything you could call a measurement that, now I know there isn't, but it's just as a question, that doesn't require a flat plane first. Because we have navigation, we have surveying, we have air travel, all the things that use large expanses of land, or earth, let's say, land and water. Let's just say we'll add in water with navigation and air travel. Like, is there anything that doesn't have to start with a flat plane?
No.
Like, I can guarantee you
No, there isn't. They all use a flat plane. Earth is measured, navigated, and observed flat. Doesn't matter if you're on the sea or in the air. You're navigating on a flat plane. If you're building on it, you're building on a flat plane. That's how it works. That's what it is.
Yeah, everything, every single zero. Every zero in the world, if you're talking about anything with large expanses of area, that zero is always a horizontal baseline. It always has to be a horizontal baseline. Zero on the altitude indicator on an airplane is a horizontal. Zero for a right angle is always horizontal. It has to be. So the only real world zero, and we are talking about navigation, surveying, air travel, etc., is going to be a horizontal baseline.
Right, I can't be bothered to put this into a top 5. I think we've done enough on fallacy. Should do a bit of housekeeping. 25 minutes into the show.
That was the proto-fallacy, by the way. When you introduce Earth as a sphere after measuring it flat.
Yeah. It is the proto-fallacy, isn't it?
Fallacy.
Yeah, you're just hung up on the flat Earth measurement we need first. Don't get hung up on that flat Earth measurement that we need first to measure anything on a sphere. Let's just concentrate on us acquiring the flat Earth angle measurement, and then what we do with it on a sphere, we'll focus on that bit. Okay, don't get hung up on us needing a flat Earth angle first.
Yeah, the standards are too high on this show.
I think, John, you should...
Sorry.
Just give them the angle. Just give them it. Let them have it flat first. Let them acquire those 2 straight lines to the celestial object that they're measuring. Let them have it off a flat plane. Because obviously once they've measured it off a flat plane, it's game over. Doesn't matter what they do after that.
I'd like to have John... Well, go on, Arvin. I'll go after you.
I was just going to say, it's all housekeeping fallacy, right? Every time that we refer to, housekeeping question-related arguments, that's basically a housekeeping fallacy to the ballers, because there's nothing they can do with that.
I like John, too. I like John to comment on Eratosthenes and Al-Biruni and the way they did it as well.
Well, they use Earth as their baseline to measure angles to celestial objects or to mountains. So that Earth had to be flat for their initial measurement. I mean, it's a lot simpler than most people think, I think.
It's like a
You just need to ask MC Tunes, because MC Tunes now he understands how it goes. It must go like that. Flat plane.
Yeah, and Zanik. Yeah, we're going to need a flat plane first.
That's a based assertion fallacy. Get it? A based assertion fallacy?
Oh, it's definitely baselineless. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon formerly known as Earth curve.
I'm sorry, nobody seems
You're
to
not
got it.
expected to observe the geometrical horizon.
Yeah, you are if you're a globe believer. Go ahead, Arwin.
Arwin's still going on with the pun that he did.
Yeah, it's not even about a baseline. It's based assertion fallacy. That means an assertion that has been fundamentally based. So you actually did prove it, and you call it a fallacy then, right? A based assertion fallacy. The opposite of a baseless assertion fallacy.
So you're proving the opponent's
point. You're not supposed to explain puns.
But otherwise you don't get it.
That's the point.
It's
Nathan,
No,
he
not
broke.
getting it
Hold
is
on.
not the point. You're supposed to
Nathan.
get it.
No, Nathan, he broke a very important rule.
No, just don't
of
mention it. We'll
engagement.
move on. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Negative.
See question
Plane
number one.
instruments account for the Coriolis deviation. They compensate for it
What compensates for it?
somehow. The instruments of the airplane.
Magic Coriolis button, accounting for things that aren't happening? No, I don't think so.
Oh,
No. They
my
just
man.
they project a hologram downward for those that are seeing them seeing themselves basically deviate in relation to the plane. So plane sends out a hologram to kind of overcompensate and make it appear like it's not deviating. See, it is still deviating though.
Making this up.
Yeah, the avionics account for that, so I don't have to back up my bullshit assertion.
Did Mr. Pilot come back and tell us which of his fancy instruments account for an illusion only seen from the ground? Did he tell us that?
No, I didn't come back
I
yet.
just explained it.
No.
He has a holographic projector downward. So those that are seeing the Coriolis deviation seems to them like it's not deviating, right?
Yeah, that's the point. That's the consequences. What Owen's saying is, if what the pilot said was true, then he'd press a button and a guy who's observing the plane from a rotating platform will see a projection of the plane correcting for the rotation that the person is observing the plane with, so that what they see is a plane still moving in a straight path.
Exactly.
Wait,
Magic Coriolis
is that
button.
Would that button be right next to the button of, oh, let me account for this runway that happens to be moving while I'm trying to land on it? Is it next to that button?
Yeah, again, the natural consequences of having a Coriolis deflection, that would be you observing things from rotating bodies. In this instance, from a globe believer's point of view, from a rotating globe Earth. So you look up from a rotating globe Earth at a plane travelling in a straight line and go, check it out, it looks like, not really, but looks like it's curving. That plane that's moving in a straight path with absolutely no effect on it whatsoever, because it's me turning beneath it that sees this effect, called Coriolis. So therefore, the plane's moving straight but only looks like it's curving because I'm turning beneath it. Now you can exaggerate that effect by turning beneath a plane on a roundabout, making the rotation much faster. Then you see it corkscrewing. But the plane's still just travelling straight while you watch it seem to corkscrew, because you're turning beneath it. Now, for the plane to account for that effect, it would mean that it had to produce a little hologram that was anti-corkscrew, non-reality visual effect from you on a roundabout, counteracting button. Right, Owen?
It's going to be pretty expensive advanced holographic technology in order to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Or to put it another way, absurd. But because there's a guy claimed to be on a turning Earth watching planes seem to drift, that's Coriolis effect, that means Earth's turning under the plane. So if you're watching the plane seem to drift because it's claimed, as it is, that Earth turns underneath stuff, Coriolis deflection at 15 degrees an hour, and you happen to be standing on the runway, then you and the runway are moving under the plane at 15 degrees an hour, and that's a massive problem for landing. Do they account for that? No, it isn't happening either. Nobody's watching planes seem to drift, and nobody's accounting for runways moving under the plane at 15 degrees an hour. For the guy on the runway, cemented to the ground in the tower, to see planes looking like, but not really drifting, as they try and approach the runway straight, and it moves beneath them. That doesn't happen. There is no Coriolis drift. It's all nonsense. Earth's not turning underneath anything.
Also, by
How would you?
I just wanted to say that with the button next to that holographic Coriolis compensation button is the button for the autopilot to actually adapt to the curve of the Earth, right?
Yeah, that button check.
The one that's going to make you crash very quickly.
Gravity button.
Yeah, the button the Chocolate's talking about is next to the button that accounts for the 800-mile backward takeoff. That one.
Is that next to the button?
Yeah.
Is that next to the button that forget everything you was ever taught while you was learning how to fly a plane button? That the ground is actually stationary and not moving.
That one's labelled autopilot.
Didn't he say a day after? Didn't someone come on the show a day after that pilot came on and say, after the show ended, he admitted that at 50,000 feet he never saw curvature?
Yeah, but see what? Curve of the Earth is represented to a globe head as the horizon. So either he's an idiot or blind, or he doesn't understand what their own claim is, because the horizon's supposed to be Earth curve. So he's saying at 50,000 feet he can't see the horizon.
Well, I'm just saying that because we're getting stories of people on passenger planes looking through a window that's curved to begin with and saying, oh, yeah, I've seen Earth curvature from an airplane at 30,000 feet. Now, I've been on a plane many times, so have you, many members on the panel, and we've never seen it. And here's a pilot saying, yeah, I've never seen it 20,000 feet high.
Let's get this clear. Everyone can see the horizon at almost any altitude. However, the horizon is an Earth curve.
Yeah, the part that really stands out to me is when I tried to distinguish to this guy between the difference of you having to account for an observation made from the ground and you actually in the plane having to negotiate a moving ground. And he refused to do that. He's stuck. It's like they hear Coriolis and they have to argue that, as opposed to arguing what they should be arguing for, is how is your plane landing on a runway that's moving?
Right. In the same way, Neil deGrasse Tyson says that field goals are assisted by Earth's rotation, i.e. Earth turns under the football and causes it to go through the goal. That's Earth turning underneath the football. Therefore, Earth is turning underneath aeroplanes as they come into land? Yeah, that doesn't happen.
When you say 800 miles an hour backwards, is he landing backwards, Chocolate?
Depends where you are. If he's taken off from the equator, it'd be 1,000 miles, but we typically use Charlotte to LA. So 800 miles an hour is probably why he's saying that.
Well, being that I worked at an airport for almost a decade and I had to actually marshal planes in, none of them actually ever landed backwards. Nah. Sorry.
Did you ever do the moonwalk stuff that you occasionally see on YouTube with people with those lights, doing the cool dance as you're ushering them in?
Yeah, you get bored out there sometimes. Got it. And I worked at sometime when during the winter it's cold, so you want to dance to keep yourself a little warm.
It makes sense because with the light, the Chocolate was light on his feet, so it would seem that way.
Yes, sir.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over there. I have an angle to it, and I can see it.
An angle to it, or are you standing on the top of a protractor called Globe Earth?
Protractor Earth.
I think that you're going to need a geometric horizon for that.
You will.
And
if you stood on a protractor, you've got a geometric horizon called Earth curve. That's right.
The model for that Globe Earth is based on a flat plane anyway, so...
You can't get an angle if you're standing on the curved end of anything. You can't get an angle from a curve.
Right.
Wait, Arwen, which geometric horizon were you talking about? The one we wouldn't expect to see, or the one that we've been told for years and years that blocks boats and buildings in the distance? Which one of those?
The one you have a straight line of sight to, despite light being curved.
Yeah. How do you measure over there?
You just go over there, and then when over there moves over there, you keep measuring it. Sooner or later, you'll get there.
Right. You don't need to measure it. You just need to calculate where it's supposed to be.
How do you measure your direct line distance to a moving object? How is that possible?
I'm sure you could
when you don't know where the moving object.
That sounds like maths that somebody could easily do if they were a good mathematician. I'm sure Adam could do that if you challenged him.
But you didn't let me finish. If you don't know where the thing is in the first place.
Oh, now you're just making things too hard.
How do you measure a distance when you don't know where the thing is?
Nobody could do that, Brian. You're totally unreasonable.
Because it has an address.
Hold on, you can still use the angle. And then with maths, you end up with the sort of presuppositional position. But you still got to confirm that it's actually there then, though.
It's that the geometric horizon doesn't like to be where it's supposed to be. Doesn't like to be home, right? Because at 1 foot observer height, the address for the geometric horizon would be 1.22 miles away. It's not there. Why is it not there? Does it like to be home?
Hills
It's
like
like-
to move occasionally. You know, if you're a hill getting in the way of stuff, sometimes it's easier to be not in the way of it, but behind it. You know, hills often get up and move chocolate. That's how hills behave, don't they?
The geometric horizon is like an ex-husband. You needed it to make that family, but then they went away again, right?
Wait,
It's
the
still-
geometric horizon
What?
went to go get cigarettes?
I
Yeah,
can't
and
believe
never
this.
came back.
Owen's just compared Earth curve at the horizon, formerly known as a geometric Earth curve edge, to a what's it called? Estranged partner, correct?
Yep.
And
Correct.
Chocolate said
Well,
he's
no, it
just
can't even be
gone to
that.
get cigarettes. I mean, this is all getting very dark very quickly.
Well, no, if the horizon was geometric, then you wouldn't be able to measure an angle from the surface of Earth.
Now, they've told us they know the distance to the sun, 93 million miles, but don't they need R to get that?
I was just returning videotapes.
Yeah, correct. And they also refer to the moon. That's why they say it's 400 times bigger and 400 times further away than the moon. So even though it seems the same size, they are not they're not the same size. So they say. So they base on that, not to have a local sun. They cannot have a local sun.
No. Just that sun might give divergent rays, crepuscular rays. Oh, we do have crepuscular rays.
Oh, one deck.
I was just saying, going back to the fallacy list we was before, it's just reminding me how you can get dragged into these things. Like, I can't remember if you can just remind me of the name when I explain it. I was talking about the distance of the sun with somebody, and the perihelion and aphelion came up, and I'm saying, well, no, it's so many miles closer at perihelion or further away. So I've fallen into the trap of giving the sun a distance, arguing the fact that it's further at one time of year and closer at the other. Which fallacy was that again? Sorry.
Well, that's you begging the question on their behalf.
Right, yeah. I fell for that
One deck, it's correct. The sun is further from you and closer to you at different times of the year. That is actually correct.
Within
Whatever
their
the sun
model.
is.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know that, but
Well,
they put a mileage to that, haven't they? They've put it. It's 90. I think it's something like 2 million miles.
Hold on one deck. I think Brian's about to get into launching into actually claiming about nearer and further away in reality. Let's just see if he's going to make that claim.
I'm sharpening my knives for when he does it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the
Go ahead,
sun
Brian.
will appear to be further from you and closer to you at different times of the year. And you can do an angular size measurement of the sun 2 particular times of the year, and you can see that there is a definitive angular size difference.
Okay, he's got enough weasel words in there for me to not stab him. Okay, yeah, appears to. What Brian's describing is, in winter, if you watch the sun, it will remain closer to the horizon. It'll not gain as much angular altitude, right? The elevation angle measurement that you take from that sun will be decreased through winter, i.e., or to put it another way, it doesn't get as high in the sky. How does that translate to distance, though? Nearer, further.
We're talking...
You've said appears already, you weasel.
Yeah, no, but they see that's where the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn come from. That's if you look at the 21st of June and the 21st of December, you will see that the GP position of the sun will be on the 21st of June will be at the Tropic of Cancer, and on the 21st of December will be at the Tropic of Capricorn.
And that's a location, is it?
Well, it's a GP position. I don't know.
No, you mean those lights will be above the ground somewhere?
Well, that particular light will have a different position, a different GP position. It will never have.
The GP is real. The GP's real. The guy from Discord back on Thursday, I can't remember who it is to credit him with saying this. Just because we have the distance along the ground to where the light in the sky is above, doesn't translate to nearer or further, or in fact anything in terms of the distance to the light. It doesn't translate. You told me this, Brian.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that we have the tropics and the GP positions at those two different times of the year. We have the angular size change at those two different times of the year. So, we can take as an inference that the sun is in a different position in the sky at those two different times of the year.
Yeah, that's the extrapolation that gives you the equator. I understand the extrapolation in terms of taking the midpoint for those two claimed distances. But, okay, if I ask you to put that to one side for a moment and explain why I can't get the height of the moon, for instance. If I I've just got a triangle to it, right? I can locate where it is in terms of its GP, where it's above on the ground. Therefore, I've got the hypotenuse, right? Therefore, I've got the other side of the triangle to give me the height, haven't I, Brian? I know we haven't, but can you explain why I haven't?
Well, we don't have any idea what height any of the celestial bodies are at, or what they actually are. We don't know that. We only have the GP positions. So we don't have the hypotenuse, the length of the hypotenuse. We don't have that. We only have an angle. We don't have the length of the angle. And that's why they use, with celestial navigation, that's why they use and it can be continually used, the zenith angle to give us a horizontal and adjacent distance.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And further to that, if I take an angle measurement from altitude, it won't alter the angle, will it?
No, that's another thing as well. If you're in an airplane,
I just need to know.
The same angle.
Yeah. I'm getting there. So, given that if you raise up in altitude, it doesn't increase the height because of the distance increasing or decreasing, is that right? Yeah, the angle would decrease on the hypotenuse as you raised up if it was a physical item at a physical height, but it doesn't. Therefore, when it's at your zenith and moves through the angles towards the horizon, why would that in any way infer that it's further or more distant just because the land at its GP is further and more distant?
Well, it doesn't prove it.
Boom!
But it does imply it.
I understand that. I understand it's implied, and that implication has been turned into the equator for the midpoint, hasn't it?
Yes.
Right, but we're at the stage now where we can honestly admit that doesn't necessarily follow in terms of saying, because when I measure an angle to the sun over this GP, that's, let's say for easy maths, it's a mile away. The sun is over there, it's very near to my zenith, it's only a mile above the ground. I put an X on the ground, then I measure it again at the I don't know, 4 or 5 hours later, and I go, right, look, it's only 30 degrees off the horizon. The piece of land it's above is, let's say it's 1,000 miles away. So you go, well, obviously the sun is further away. I say wrong. I say you can't make that inference.
Yeah, you can't prove it. You can't prove it because you don't know what the sun is. You don't know how it was created, and you don't know where it is. You just know that it appears to be up above you and at a distance.
You know where it's above, i.e., you know the land that if you were stood at that particular location and you looked up, that star or celestial body would be directly above your head at your zenith. You know that, but it doesn't give you anything more about the star itself other than where it's going to be above at a particular time.
It's only still the angle. Because if you go up right in that moment, is it still going to be there? Are you going to see its angular size grow as you go up towards it? I don't think so.
It's one of the
Every
most...
Every hour it moves 15 degrees. We do know that.
Sure, we can look at the mechanics of it, but it's the most amazing and wondrous thing in our existence, as far as I'm concerned. It's absolutely majestic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but we're still talking past each other, though.
Talking what?
Because we're still talking past each other. Because when we talk about elevation angles from Polaris, this is to give us the grid system that we have, the lines of longitude and latitude. So then, after that, you look at the other wandering stars and you say, well, I wonder where this star will be above my head using this grid system. Oh, it's over here. X marks the spot. And then later on, you'll say, oh, actually, now, X amount of time later, it's over this other side over here. So I moved from the grid system, this point, to that point. But we're just moving on a flat plane, on a grid system, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we're not talking past each other. Yeah, I agree. If you could keep up with that pace, you could keep the star at your zenith and move a massive distance, right, over the course of a day. Or night. Whatever, follow the sun. You know, people sometimes try and do it in jets and keep it at a certain angle above the horizon. Or try and increase its angle with respect to the horizon. And they call that catching up with the sun while they increase its angle of elevation above the horizon as they move across the distance towards the GP that it's above. Now, all of those things, they stand true. I appreciate that we've taken that information from those stars. It just doesn't tell us about the stars and what they are, or, more importantly in this point, where they are.
Yeah, we can prove a geometric change, but we can't prove a celestial change.
Exactly. We can prove a geometric position at a given time and prove it. We can stand at that position and look above and say, in 3 minutes, that star's going to be directly above me, and it will be. But it just proves the position below it, rather than the position that you're looking up at.
Going back to what I said to one deck, if you take what, like, one deck thought he was wrong because he felt he walked himself into a trap by talking about perihelion and aphelion. But the thing about it is that they've just taken GP positions and they've reified them into some other big crazy thing, and that's really all they've done. So good deck could argue that the sun does appear to be in a different location in the sky at different times of the year. And it obviously appears to rise in different parts of your local horizon, sorry. But that doesn't, it's faulty logic to then turn that into a 3 million mile difference in a heliocentric model. So he wasn't that wrong to argue the point, but.
Well, even in a flat Earth conception, right, you still don't get a distance to the sun.
I mean, I definitely get colder when my oven comes 3 million miles closer to me. That checks out.
When you evoke
I'm going to give
GPs,
that context. Hold
it's
on.
a game over,
Hold on. We've just stepped from Brian saying the sun appears to be further away in winter. It hugs the horizon, if you will, therefore, in terms of its GP, where that would be versus over you directly. Obviously, it's therefore where you are. Well, it isn't. But that's Brian's point. What Chocolate's just said is, when he opens his oven and moves the oven further away, he gets hotter. Now, the reason he's saying that is because in the heliocentric model, even though from your vantage point, watching the sun on the horizon appearing to hug it at a lower elevation angle, versus it being above you and at your zenith potentially during the summer, depending on where you are. Sometimes it doesn't reach your zenith. But either way, higher in the sky. The heliocentric model would say that when the sun is higher in the sky and you're scorching hot, that's the sun actually further away from you in winter. So you've got the sun closer in winter, further away in summer.
Yep. I mean, that definitely checks out when I go outside and it's like 7 feet of snow on the ground. Oh, but the tilt explains that. Yeah, sure.
Well, that's what I was about to say, because if you're standing like in a fire and you tilt yourself away at 15 degrees, you don't burn up, right?
Yeah. I mean, what kind of logic is that?
Not 50,
Seriously.
it's 23 point something or other. It's 66.6 off horizontal. Why is it 30?
23.4. 23.4.
There you go. I know why I said 15
There is the other
degrees,
element to it.
Yeah. Go on, sorry, Brian.
The sun appears... Sorry, Nathan, go on.
No, I was saying go on, Brian.
Okay, sorry. There is the other element where the sun appears to be higher and lower at different times of the year. Is that just an angular thing, or is the sun raising and lowering in the sky?
That's the whole point of the last discussion we had. I'm saying no. Yeah. I'm saying just because it's at your zenith doesn't mean it's closer or further away.
We kind of can't. We can't really reference the sun directly at all, can we? Because we don't know what it is enough to directly reference it. So
Yeah, but to you
can
it
only talk
appears
about
the sun to be down, but to somebody else the sun is up.
Yeah, we're not talking relatively. We're talking just in terms of you not knowing what it does. If it moves 1 degree off your zenith, you can shoot up at 1,000 miles an hour and continue to measure the exact same angle the whole time you go up. Now, that to me is absolutely bonkers. But still, that's how it works.
Yeah, I find that a little crazy too.
Correct. You need to know the GP of it. Because once that you invoke GP, it's just to say, welcome to flat Earth. Because you need that straight line to the GP in order to have the elevation angle from it. So anytime they invoke a GP, that's it. Game over.
Right, it's got 90 degrees to its zenith. It's on a circle of equal elevation. It's all flat plane once they say the words geographical position for a star. Yeah, right. That's welcome to flat Earth time. Correct.
Shouldn't the GP be half the Earth though?
What, super GP?
Yeah, super GP. Yes.
So Chocolate's explaining that if the sun is vastly bigger than us and you've got parallel light rays coming into us, then you've got the entire one side of the Earth representative of the position below the sun. There is no local GP with the sun above it on a globe Earth. There's just a super GP covering half the Earth and lighting all of it.
Yeah, there can't be a sun over a tropic of Cancer or Capricorn or any other particular point at any time. It always, regardless of its supposed heliocentric distance from us at any time of the year, it always has to cover the whole side that it's lighting.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
.8 meters per second per second.
You need a phenomenon for that.
That's just a number. 9.8 meters per second isn't gravity. It's just maths for conceptual mediums and mass going down when that's defined by gas law.
Yeah, the 9.8 M2, that's just an acceleration rate. That doesn't prove anything. Sure does. Never proved anything.
But we use it in everyday maths in many departments of physics.
No, it's an acceleration. Yeah. It's useful for an acceleration rate for solids and gases, i.e. the air that we're actually inhabiting. Well, that acceleration rate isn't so useful if you try and apply it to the same exact masses in a different medium, like water. Right? You can't just stick your scale at the bottom of the lake and then hope that you can chuck something in and weigh it the same, because obviously the medium behaves differently. So that convention is useful and used often and claimed to be universally true throughout the existence of the known universe because it's just applied generally to solids moving through gases.
Actually, Nathan, I hate to do it. I'm sorry, but I have to do it because I know you'd prefer that I did do this. It's actually based within a vacuum, not even within air. The calculation is based within the pre-assumption that something is falling through a vacuum. So
with minimal, no resistance. So with no medium.
And funny enough, things don't fall at the same rate.
I would say a different medium.
Vacuum either, which used to be their main argument.
What vacuum? Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
Yeah, what vacuum?
Are you gonna need at least 2 containers?
3, you'll need 3.
Net container 0.
Chocolate was ruined my joke. Yeah, net container 0. I was going to say, is this thing on? Any evidence of gas pressure without a container? Not net container 0.
Impossible.
We need a container to create a vacuum.
That's a container then.
A gradient.
That's a delta of gas pressure.
Which requires
if you have a container on both sides of the equation, you can just eliminate the container at that point.
Yeah, that's net container 0. No, that's nonsense. 2 containers don't make a right.
How about I can see your point that you require a container to have gas pressure, and then I'll go forth to tell you how we don't need a container for gas pressure? How about we do that?
That sounds about right. So concede
what
that
about pointing at the sky?
We don't achieve gas pressure without containment, but then go on to explain how Earth doesn't need containment because it's special.
Yep.
Wasn't there a video that Danny Faulkner posted up that he found on YouTube after telling the flat earthers just go to YouTube and pick up any video. And the video he posted was gas pressure without a container. And then when you watch the video, there's at least 3 containers bringing in the gas.
That's correct. So for the full story, Danny Faulkner went on a radio show and said that flat earthers are basically dumb and... Well, no, he didn't. He said that people are inquisitive and then fall for flat earth because they haven't approached people like him to get the answers. It seems like there isn't any answers to the flat earth questions that are posed, but he has the answers. So then he's approached by Nathan Thompson at a flat earth convention, and he's asked, how do you have gas pressure without a container? And he doesn't have an answer. So after the convention's concluded, he goes online, types into Google, how do you have gas pressure without a container? And the first result is Blue Marble Science example of 3 containers. So he posts that as a response to somebody. Here's how you have gas pressure without a container. Here's Blue Marble Science example with at least 2 containers.
How cool is that?
What's worse is I think in the interview he said something like, they just go on the internet and have a little look and don't find the answers, but I've got all the answers. So when he was, challenged to just literally do exactly what he criticised flat earthers with a stereotyping fallacy of doing, flat earthers just go on the internet and have a little look. Oh, right, what you mean you project out what you did when you were challenged and didn't have an answer, you went on the internet and found a nonsensical answer that had 2 containers in it when asked how you can have gas pressure without a container. Projection. Pure projection.
There was at least a 20-foot pipe with one end open at the very top, but all, as most people know, a pipe is a container. But he had the top open, but the top was 20 feet high, and he put the gas in there. He says, see, there you go.
Excuse me. I have a screenshot of Blue Marble asking for a citation that an open pipe is a container. Thank you.
Right.
It's an open container, a container.
They thought that open containers like a glass or a bucket are not a container because they were under the assumption that the container would mean a sealed container. And that was just not the case.
Well, no, it is the case. To have gas pressure maintained, to form things like gas pressure deltas, gradients, well, then you're going to need a sealed container for that gas pressure. A leaky container won't do it. Entropy's a bitch in that regard. The gas will fill the space. It doesn't need a very big hole. Yeah? If you've got a gas leak, yeah, does it just manage to just pool itself in one room? Or does it find any nook and cranny and work anywhere it wants to go with time? Yeah, with time it just escapes. Unless it's sealed. Yeah, they don't tend to sell butane in kind of open containers. They'll be all right. You'll still get the butane home. Right? No. Butane doesn't come in open containers. Now, temporarily, if you've got a long enough pipe with a big enough surface area, you can temporarily have gas within the container, having bashed on the sides of the pipe, not find its way to the top yet, and therefore measure a pressure in an open container. But with entropy, time, the gas will fill the space. It will leave the container, because sometimes the gas will hit the walls of the pipe, but sometimes it will hit the opening at the end and escape into the quote-unquote atmosphere, sphere-shaped air that doesn't need containment. So the gas still fills the space, even in a pipe with an open top, which is most definitely a container. Any more for any more? No?
Yeah,
Fair
they try to do the Jedi mind trick. Don't look at my containers here. Here's my gas. Hide the container, and then put it in the container. There is no containers here.
There are no
They were just trying to redefine container. That's what I think they were doing.
Well, don't we have enough other things that verify what we're trying to say? You have an exhaust system in the car. It's got to get out somehow. You got a chimney. You got smokestacks in factories.
Yeah, temporary retention of gas pressure in an open container. Yeah, we don't have temporary gas pressure here. We've got permanent gas pressure, 14.7 psi at sea level. That's permanent. You know, it's not like one day we come and go, oh no, there's no gas pressure. No, we just need to be in a sealed container for that to be the case. But with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or in Nathan Oakley live stream for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a member, and all that good stuff. Stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Why are you throwing at him, bro? What's going on?
Why are you throwing what?
We're just punning.
I'll throw
Okay.
you a beating if you keep it up.
His Rangers lost. He's upset. Leave him alone.
They'll just play again next season.
Yeah.
Neil, when you get mad, do you throw somebody in the bathroom?
Throw him in the bathroom.
Throw these fuckers in the bathroom. I
Well,
love that movie.
see, that's the thing. The Rangers were doing good, but when everybody started moving around and changing seats, they started doing bad. So I had to put everybody back in the same seats. Can't move. Don't move.
What a load of old nonsense.
Sounds like you're superstitious. Why should your team play good with superstition and not on their own merit?
Play well.
Hey, listen. Yes, they play well. Exactly. Listen, if you sit, they were doing great when everybody was in the right seats. Every time people got up and moved, they started doing bad. And you know what? That's why they lost. So nobody's allowed in my house anymore when the Rangers are on.
Sounds like a dependent variable.
That's the best excuse to kick everyone out on football day ever. Look, you guys kept moving around, and that is causally the reason they lost. So therefore, get lost. I'm watching on my own.
Same thing with the hat and the bed. When my son put the hat on the bed on vacation, everything went wrong.
It's a natural phenomenon, DVIV. Come on, I want to hear it all.
Hat on
IV
bed,
hat.
things started going wrong. Suitcases flying off cars. Before hat on bed, beautiful vacation.
Neil didn't claim a natural phenomenon.
How are we talking about this? What's going on? I was only in the intro.
Next
for
time,
60
just
seconds.
take the hat off the bed.
We did, but it takes 21 years to, and sometimes that curse is not even lifted.
Nathan wants to change the subject. Can't you get it? Got on this because we started punning while you were ending the show.
Anyway.
Yeah. About the gas pressure thing from the end of the show, I couldn't respond there. I'll just throw this in and see if it gives a change of conversation. If it goes dead, it goes dead. But the whole point of gas pressure, right, is that it has something to press on. Pressure in general is pressing, pressure, right? So regardless of if a pipe with an open end on it, it still has pressure because there's something to press upon. You know? Now, besides all the other factors, like that the fact that there was already gas pressure in the pipe because it came from the outside, but there was already gas pressure due to us being in a container. You know, the point is that the guy created a gradient of pressure within a container that was already within a container. You know, so
Correct.
technically he ended up using 3 containers, you know, to create a gas pressure gradient within a container.
Yeah, but Brian, what about when they say, I had one guy say to me, well, what's the air pressing on right now? I don't see it pressing on anything.
Yeah, it's because they deny temperature exists here. You know, PV equals nRT. The T in that, the ideal gas law, the T is that in that is temperature. But they replace the T with a G.
What's
and
the V?
They say, sorry?
What's the V?
Oh, V is for volume.
Volume.
Container.
Volume of what?
Container.
Containment.
So when someone says, look at the air here, I'll just hold my arms out at arm's length and go, what's this amount of air pressing on? And you go, well, it's not. It's in containment to have pressure at all. If there was nothing at all to be pressing on, it would disperse.
Right,
It's like
so
a guy,
when they do
if
that,
you're an ant,
I tell them that just...
you drop an ant into the centre of a butane can. So imagine you've got a butane can. Or you, by scale, in a massive container. But just for scale, it's easier to put a tiny ant in a butane can. And you put a little ant in the bottom, and he stood on the little dome bit at the bottom of the butane can. And he's got an ant next to him, and he goes, well, what's the butane that we're in now pressing on? And the ant goes, what are you talking about? And the ant holds out its little ant legs and goes, this gas here in front of me, what's that pressing on? And the other ant goes, well, we're in a massive container. And the other ant goes, well, I can't see it. You go, it's really big. But we've got to be in a container or there wouldn't be pressure here.
That's my point. That's what I said. You just proved that we have containment by those very words that you said.
And if that can of butane is on a heated floor, then and it's tall enough, then it's very likely that there will be a gas pressure gradient within there if the top of it is cooler than the bottom.
Right.
But they
Plus, of
replace
course,
the T
there's
with
some
the G.
type of inhomogeneous anisotropic dynamic system in the can. That would be some shit.
Yeah.
Well, like a bottle garden.
Yeah.
Or a whirlwind.
Yeah, why not?
That's something you don't expect to see when you show someone your bottle garden. Check out my bottle garden. It's been sealed for 10 years. Wow, that's some beautiful anisotropic inhomogeneous gases that are circulating around in that there bottle garden. What?
Yep.
What?
But that is what they do, Neil. They just replace the T with a G. So instead of PV equals N or T, it becomes PV equals N or G, and they deny the temperature exists or has any relevance on gas pressure. That's what they have to do. Completely deny that to make the claim that there is a force of gravity, which is out of date, creating a gas pressure gradient within a massive vacuum without containment.
So you're saying if the base of the butane can in my ant example was exothermic, you'd have a gas pressure gradient?
I don't know what does exothermic mean?
Hot.
Well, yeah. I mean, if that's if that's warmer than the top of the can, the top of the butane can is cooler than that, then there will be convection and there will be a gradient.
Well, isn't it important that all the gases are produced at ground level anyway?
I just want to get a few more big words into the description of this bottle garden. Oh, there's some beautiful anisotropic inhomogeneous mixture of gases going on in that there bottle garden. Is the soil exothermic?
You are impressive.
Good one, Ted. I mean, it's just basic physics, isn't it? I mean, they've just basically we were brought up to deny basic physics. That's what we were brought up to do. We were taught in science classes. I wasn't. I don't know what I was doing, but I wasn't taught that. In science classes, what causes pressure, PV equals nRT, all those basic things, or if you went to university to become an engineer or whatever. But then you're also taught along the way that you have to deny all that. And there's this other magic thing that they keep changing the description of called gravity, and that does stuff. You know, that and this gravity can't be harnessed. When it was a force, they couldn't harness it, and now it's just an effect, and they still can't prove it.
And,
Well, I
and
mean-
when the magic of that magic loses its magic, we create more magic called dark stuff that will create to explain the magic that lost its magic. Yep, that checks out.
Yeah.
We've all pumped a tire with a hand pump, say of a 10-speed bike or any kind of a bike, and you keep pumping and the air doesn't fill the tire. So you're saying, well, there must be a leak somewhere. I can't contain this air. So here we have gases produced at ground level, much like the pump putting air into the tire, but there's a big hole in the tire, so it can never have pressure. We have pressure. You don't have to see it, just logic.
That's not 100% true. So actually, that's quite a good comparison to Blue Marble Science's pipe. So the pipe is big enough to have a nice big surface area. So comparatively, the hole at the top isn't comparable to the massive amount of surface area that you have for the gas to press on temporarily as it disperses, creating the gradient within the pipe. Well, likewise, if you've got a tyre with a tiny little hole in it, you can go to the petrol station, fill the tyre with nice gas from the pump, and then leave with 30 psi. You get home and it's flat again. But you didn't notice it going down because it's only pressing on the air pressure inside is hitting the rubber more often than it's hitting the hole. So it retains pressure for a certain amount of time as it decreases. But you've still just got exactly the same scenario. You've got a hole in your container. It can temporarily contain gas, but entropy's a bitch. It will escape.
Yeah, that wasn't my point with a little hole. I'm talking about the whole Earth, and when you look up, that's the open space, like a gaping hole in the tires, the way I was framing
Well,
it.
that's like
A slash.
Well, there's not even a slash because there isn't any containment in the heliocentric system whatsoever. So it's not like we've got a big tyre and then there's a little bit of a hole in it and the little bits escape into space like they describe. It's like when they describe us losing gas to space by however metric tons they give the number as, and they go, oh, it's huge, but nothing compared to the amount we've got overall. You're like, well, okay, why is the gas that's at a certain level, carbon line, not escaping? It's a high-pressure gas moving at high speed. So you're saying that some of it escapes and some of it doesn't? No. All gas would just expand in all directions to fill whatever space it's got.
But it's at that point that they hijack kinetic energy, Nathan, and deny elastic collisions.
Well, they claim
At
it
the
slows
same
down. Yeah, that's the rebellious gas particle story. They get up to a certain height and just go, I've had enough of natural law. Sod this. I'm going to burn my bra in rebellion.
Yeah, they deny temperature. That's what they have to do. You have to deny temperature. But at the same time, they are claiming it slows down. The movement of the gas slows down. But what happens is it's colder, so the gas movement does slow down because the cold extracts the kinetic energy, and the gas becomes more dense, and it flows back down. While other warmer gases are being excited and having kinetic energy added to them at ground level, and they're rising up. It's called convection, yeah. But they have to deny temperature and deny a lot of other things, but then make the claim that the gas runs out of energy up high in the sky, and that's why it's not dispersing out into a vacuum. Has energy anything got to do with a vacuum?
Right, but exactly. With to have convection cycles, as you're describing them, you've got to be in a contained system to begin with. You've got to develop gas pressure to then have those cycles develop. So in other words, at some point there is still containment, even if you've got convection cycles going on lower down. You've got to have the ability for the gas to escape from that convection cycle and then collide with the container so it doesn't just disperse. If there was no containment, as per the heliocentric description of a globe Earth, then there's nothing to stop any gas ever. It's never even going to develop pressure, let alone develop a cycle.
Yeah, Paul Hall's question some years ago actually ended the argument. It was brilliant, but I think that at the time we not that we didn't recognize it, but I think we were too entrenched in nonsense, is that how many microstates does the sky have?
Right. With it being a sky
All of
vacuum,
them.
it would be an infinite number of available possibilities for those gases to occupy. In terms of the entropic differential, it's vast if the sky is a vacuum. You know, with the pressure that we have at 14.7 versus the vast number of available microstates in entropic descriptions, you'd just have gas exploding into that space within a heartbeat.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a gradient. There just wouldn't be gas.
If it's infinite, then there wouldn't be gas. But if it's just insanely large, it would be so thin that there would be no, insignificant amount of gas everywhere.
It's like you. It's if that was the case, right? I know in my example now we're going to have existing gas pressure, but you know if you've got a fog machine and you're in a sealed room and you turn the fog machine on, you can instantly fill the room with the gas and you can't see anything and you can't do anything because you've got so much fog in there. Well, by comparison, if you've got no room around you, no walls around you, and you let off the fog machine, it always just dissipates. It never reaches a point where it's got a thick layer. Well, by analogy, that's the same as Earth would be with the gas being comparable to the fog. You let the fog out from ground level as gas is produced, and it never, ever, ever develops gas pressure. It never comes back down and presses on you. It just goes away. They never develop any gas at pressure to have anything in existence that is used to argue against the fact that we must have containment, i.e. gradients.
I was going to bring something up about gravity and ether that I don't think a lot of people think about. If y'all are done with gas pressure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, like when you're talking about motion, right? You'll use Cartesian coordinates, right? And you'll graph a thing's position over time to discuss motion. And I think that's where the idea of space-time comes from, is that simple reification. But that's also where the ether comes from when you take particle motion and graph it over time. So I think the ether heads and the gravity guys, they ought to get along good.
Oh, for sure. The electric universe guys are generally heliocentric anyway, so the ether guys, as you call them, are a weird, tiny faction spin-off of electric universe, which is heliocentric.
Well, both the ether and gravity as an aberration are extremely similar. Both have all these different little effects that are attributed to it, but at the core, it is basically not really definable. There is no evidence, there is no actual phenomenon that can be very manipulated, right? So they are like brothers, ether and gravity.
Well, at least with John's example, ether guy will do.
Well, I'm saying that mathematically they may be the same thing.
Right. Same type of
Mathematically, that can be
aberration, same trick,
that
different
could be
field.
the same thing as calculating how fast Superman flies.
Why don't you tell us about your holographic paradigm?
No, but one allows Earth to exist in their model. The other allows light to exist in their model. See? It's extremely similar.
How does that holographic paradigm work? Are we
Doing pretty good.
Baiting you, Alvin.
Yeah, why don't you explain that to us?
What, about non-local holograms?
I don't know about your holographic paradigm that you spoke about. I'd like to hear about.
About
What do you
your
have
ether?
to substantiate that?
Substantiate. Well, I rest my case on the complete lack of evidence of the obvious other side of the argument, which would be that they are not holographic, which would be that they are physical and tangible, and thus must have a location and
What's
a
that
size.
fallacy, people? Say it with me.
So the holographic paradigm, it's just a thought, or is it your belief?
It's a nomer due to the complete lack of physical evidence.
An
So
argument
it's
from
just
ignorance,
like
fallacy.
a fictitious fantasy story.
Argument from ignorance.
I don't give a fuck.
How does that compare to the ether, you think?
Well,
Can
with the
you do
holographic
what
theory,
you asked him?
I'm
What
not
is ether?
presupposing anything, right? I'm just resting the case on the evidence and the missing thereof within the obvious logic-based reasoning conclusion of what are things. That's it. Yeah? It's not an aberration. It's not like ether, which literally makes you presuppose it at every step of the way using different types of things that happen that might be observed that you somehow tie in with that ether, even though there is no direct evidence because you don't even know what it is. You just think you need ether for light to exist. And the same is with gravity, right? We don't need gravity for things to go down, go boom, boom. Just need relative density because that's the one that works.
Well
Right?
said,
We
Owen.
don't need
So
a
you
pull
don't want
thing
to
to
tell
do
us?
it for us.
You don't want to tell us
Just
about
like
your
we don't
holographic
need
paradigm?
the ether to make
Okay.
light manifest as it does. The medium is material. That's the medium that light goes through, or the lack thereof. It's all fine. We don't need ether.
So you don't want to tell us about your holographic paradigm?
I've never heard anybody define ether. Honestly, I've never heard anyone define it properly. They can't
That's
even
right.
define it.
He's asking Arwin to define his holographic theory. That's not what he's asking.
Well, we're asking him about ether. Put Owen on the spot, we'll put him on the spot.
Why not? Why wouldn't we put Arwin on the spot?
Claims, I didn't hear him say anything.
Okay. Well, you've obviously not been around long enough to know that Arwin adheres to this and still does to this
Right
day.
now. Right now, and here on.
He was asked about it. What's wrong with that? The guy's asking him about
I've
it.
already explained it. Why should I repeat myself? Or did you pluck your ears in anticipation of, oh no, here he goes again?
I didn't hear you explain it. I just heard you just jumble a bunch of words together and then jump back to gravity and the ether talk. But I'd like to understand your holographic paradigm. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, because I did address it directly, how it works, how I figured it out, logical consistencies, how I rest my case with it. I explained all that, but apparently you blanked it out, didn't you?
I find
No,
it
did
anyone
rich
else
that
get that?
you
Did
just
anyone else
jumbled a
repeat what
bunch
the
of words
holographic
together.
paradigm is? Other than I
Don't
rest
get
my
me involved
case?
in this. Arwin knows how I feel about this. You're on your own. If you don't feel he's explained it to you, you tell him that that's fine by me.
Yeah, all I heard was I rest my case, but I never got the idea that he's trying to put forth.
I rest my case on the complete lack of evidence of a physical object in a position and all the elements that will be encompassing that when you get empirical. That's
the
what I
second
rest my
time.
case on.
The second time he's told you his argument from ignorance and false dichotomy.
I don't give a shit.
So no
You don't have
holographic
evidence for
paradigm.
the
Second time he said
physical
that too.
nature, so you have no evidence for a physical nature. I rest my case.
Well, when you're done resting, let me know when you're ready to wake up and explain.
Still baiting you, by the way, Arwin. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I can barely hear him anyway. And he's not really presenting anything or making an argument himself.
Is the lack of
Just
evidence for
asking,
something evidence for something?
That's an argument from silence fallacy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Or ignorance. It's one of the two.
I get those two confused.
We have
far
a
too often.
phenomenon. We see it. We have energy being received here on Earth, all that light. So, but yeah, when it comes to actually testing the physical object presumed to be the cause of all that, that's where there is no evidence at all. That is extremely unique and unusual compared to normal earthly research with material, right? So that's where I halt, and then I name it non-local hologram.
Both. He's using nobody's challenging it, argument from silence, and there's no evidence to the contrary, argument from ignorance. So he's actually rolled both up in one.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know what else to do.
Argument from
I could
silence
just
is-
ignore it and be a stick in the mud, like, no, I can't prove it. So
God.
I'm never going to talk about it again because I'm ashamed because I can't physically prove it.
That's
Argument.
outrageous. Go ahead, QE.
Argument from silence is a type of argument from ignorance, so it falls underneath it.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just find it funny that somebody said that you just mangled up a bunch of words in your description. Well, I mean, I kind of understood what you meant, but when asked about the thing that they try to assert, that's what I usually hear: a bunch of words jumbled up.
I'm just trying to be specific. I don't like to be compared. I don't like to be compared to heliocentrists, how they justify their reasoning. I'm trying to be very accurate and academic about it.
What?
I really
yeah,
wasn't
there's-
talking about you, though.
Oh, okay.
You don't want to
fine.
be compared to people when you'd rather just use their tools and tactics to do the exact same thing. Just don't compare me to them doing it.
My tools and what
Yeah,
the hell are you
using-
talking about?
Using an argument from ignorance is just another fallacious way of making your claim. So you don't want to be compared to ballers, but without directly doing exactly that. How can I say ballers do that? I can't, can I?
Oh, okay. So you think it's just better to just not address it, not classify it, not call it anything?
No, I'm not
Because
voting. I'm
you
just
don't
saying that-
have even
I'm not saying any of that.
remote idea of how it would function?
No, I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that upon
Oh, okay.
challenge, you just have to put it with somebody challenging you on it for obvious reasons.
I'd love
But
to.
when it comes-
I love people that assert that it's a physical thing in a literal position, and then like, oh, where's the evidence for that, right?
Because then you've got a false dichotomy on your hands, and that's much better to argue.
Right. And it's something that I think needs to be done because it is a physicality assumption bias based issue, right?
And you can defeat that side of the false dichotomy. Marvelous. This
Yeah.
is working out beautifully.
I know. Right? Unfortunately, yeah. How do you prove non-local hologram? Dude.
I don't know.
Well,
Maybe,
you
maybe,
shouldn't.
maybe
Give
that's
me a couple
maybe that's
of
my
billions
burden.
and a couple of thousand brilliant minds, and I'll maybe figure it out.
Did you say how do you prove that? Obviously, it being my burden and all.
Now, me, how do I prove that?
I don't know. How do you prove that?
Well, I explained it. Give me a couple of billion and 1,000 brilliant minds, and I'll figure it out.
This sounds familiar. We've been here before.
Is that an appeal to the future?
Until then, you're not sure.
That's right.
Is that an appeal to the
That's fine.
future? What, is that one an appeal to the future?
It was.
Okay.
Dude, what's the point of doing that?
There's a lot of
Why are you
academia. that-
analyzing me like this?
A lot
Like,
of
I'm not
academia get
making a
funded.
claim here, even. I'm just trying to describe something.
Thank
right?
you, Alan.
Trying to figure out the world and everything is in it.
Yes,
right?
okay, thank you. Yeah, John, the appeal to the future fallacy, there's a lot of academics getting paid a reasonable salary based on that very fallacy, there isn't there? Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. So
a
donate to
huge
my
one.
PayPal today. I'm a professional.
But what I was going to say is it's better not to even make a claim about something if you don't know, because claims are built on knowledge. If you don't know, then you don't have knowledge to make that claim. So it's better not to make that claim.
Right.
Well, I do know some things about it. I just don't have the full picture. But I know some things about it, so I can approach, I can start naming something, based on the things that I have and I don't have. And that's what I've done. I've called it holographic. And then more specifically, non-local, because, well, holograms that we make here on Earth with technology are typically all local, right? You approach it, it seems to get bigger, angular size, all that. It's not, I don't even know how to create a non-local hologram, right? But that's how my intuition and my observations interpret it. So that's what I've chosen to name it. And it has background to the naming. It's not just something random.
Well, the part I like best was the few billion and the few hundred brilliant minds part. Because you're putting the proof for what you're basically claiming in the hands of some super scientists, hundreds of them, and billions. So you won't be able to support the claim until you get those billions and those few hundred brilliant minds. It's
right,
like,
because then I can finally start writing a narrative that, because then I can finally start to write a narrative that is just so mind-boggling that nobody can catch up for at least another 50 years.
I was just talking out the steps that somebody who's currently in the academic position that I described with an appeal to the future fallacy and a paycheck based on it. Arwin just wants to be in that position, basically, and calling the shots and divvying out the 50 billion that he gets to come up with a firm foundation for his claim in the first instance. He's going to need all of those things. I mean, it's going to be very expensive, isn't it, Arwin?
Yes, but I'll settle for 100 euros.
He wants to be the
Well, if
baller
you
of
want to give an
ballers.
argument, you could say it's bipartisan political.
Bipartisan.
You could say it's bipartisan political if you're not allowed all that money, since they've done that with LIGO to prove Einsteinian. So you should be given all that money to prove Arwinian.
Yes, should be backdated, really. He's been asking for long enough. Should be backdated. Technically, it's prejudicial.
Yeah. 6 million, but it's now 666 million by now, and I'm worth it.
Well, I like the way that Arwin already knows the massive figure that it will cost to prove his claim. A financial figure. No, that's really good that you know that part first. You know,
right.
My claim is going to be
because knowing is easier than proving.
That part's not holographic, Brian.
No, that's very see-through.
I think you'll find it is. I mean, let's be honest. It's far more difficult to calculate the amount of great minds that would give a foundation to this nonsense than it is to just make it up altogether. I mean, because you can calculate how many minds it took to foundationalize this, it's basically true.
But that's not really, but hold on, that's not really what I need the minds for, though. I could use them for it, but I don't need. I need them mostly for, well, building stuff in order to test, like the proximity of the celestials, right? To try and get closer, to lock into the path and just figure out what's going to happen. And
you need paths, you need buildings. That's bricks. You don't need minds for that. You need bricks.
Well, I just think it's funny, Arwin, that I can summarize the holographic paradigm better than you can, and I don't even subscribe to it. I just think it's interesting.
I think you came up with it first, didn't you?
Who published
what
first?
What are you talking about?
I think this guy is basically a pretty severe threat to your funding. If he came up with it first.
Yeah, I asked you what the holographic paradigm was, Arwin, and you didn't even explain it. All you said was that you have no evidence for it. But I can explain it. So I just think it's interesting how you subscribe to something.
Hold on, I had a claim. Hold on. Dieslow's claiming he can explain. Brian's going to interrupt you once you confirm this. That you stand under the explanation of this holographic description. So go ahead, Dieslow. Let's hear it.
All right. So the basis of the holographic paradigm is essentially the whole is found complete in the parts, and the parts contain the image of the whole. That's the premise of the holographic paradigm, none of which Arwin explained to the slightest bit of notice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about my holographic son, since you addressed me about it. I could barely hear you, though, because you were constantly
I never once
breaking up.
invoked that. I asked you about your holographic paradigm, not a son.
That includes the sun.
Oh, so my paradigm, mine. right? Well, I have only
the one you believe
thing
in,
that
the one
that I
you
claim
subscribe
as
to.
mine, and that is my holographic sun theory. The thing that you're talking about, I've never even heard of that before. It sounds like simulation theory. Oh, it's all a hologram. Yeah, I do not ascribe to that at all. At all.
Oh, so just the sun's a hologram. That's what you're saying?
No, it's
Celestials, yes.
Okay, got it.
Oh, you
So it's
didn't
just
even know
a
that,
twisted
apparently.
version.
Wow.
so. Have you got a competing holographic theory then, Dicelo? Is that what we're hearing?
Well, this is a holographic paradigm, is what I just gave you. Yeah, that's the premise of the holographic paradigm. I don't know what Arwen was talking about. I guess he has some other version of it.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Can we hear it again?
Yeah, the whole is found complete in the parts, and the parts contain the image of the whole. I don't know if you've ever seen like a negative image of a hologram, but it's shown within.
Okay.
Right.
So that's
yeah,
a reasonable.
I have a good example of that, right? In the real world. Remember the eclipse, the solar eclipse? And then remember the shadows that it cast? Oh, look at the shadows. They all look like solar eclipses, every part of it. Yeah? Holographic. Yeah. See, there you got a connection. See, the minute part
that is
contains
interesting.
the whole, a typical holographic trait. Thank you. Thank you
What do you
for
mean, thank
providing
you?
me with that
Let me get
link.
it straight. Arwen's taking your description and basically taking credit for it now, it seems.
So
I
how did we
guess.
vary and
I don't know.
manipulate
Yeah, I'm
the
taking it
moon?
out of pure theory and into actual practical observation. That's right.
His description.
What's casting the shadow?
What shadow? Ah, God, here we go.
I think I was talking about the shadow on the ground, Nathan. There's a shadow created on the ground by the blocking of the light of the sun. But that doesn't mean that it's the moon that's blocking the sun, or the sun or moon are physical, or not physical.
Alrighty then. So, what? There must have been a point to all that, Dicelo, other than you criticising Arwen for not being able to verbalise his own descriptions well enough. What was the point over and above that, though?
It wasn't my theory. He was asking me
not
about
you,
something
Arwen.
else that wasn't my theory.
He's offered something up. I just want to know what his motivation was, besides having a dig at you.
Yeah, I was literally just taking some shots at Arwen.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I was just
And I
having fun.
deflected them right back in your face.
That's what happens when you're bored, right?
There's no ballers around, so we might as well fight with each other. Shit.
But Neil's here. Why pick on Arwen?
For real, right?
Well, you always punch up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't look for the smallest guy on the playground. You go for the big motherfuckers, right?
Yeah, we don't want to pick on little old Neil.
Damn.
Let's go for big buff Arwen. You know what I'm saying?
I hear my name, but I'm grinding.
Oh,
So
yeah?
I'm gonna let it go.
Is that I'm grinding too later?
Who are you grinding up against, Neil?
I'm grinding the floor.
Yeah, with who?
Come on, Dice.
Is that
Slow. Don't pick a
grinder.com,
fight
Neil?
with Arwen.
God, that's
Listen,
some pretty
Dice Slow,
vicious filth
prove your
talk you've got
frickin'
there.
Ether.
Oh, Dicelo, the
Prove your
person.
Ether.
All right, grinder.com. Cool, guy.
Grindr.com, that's a homo app.
Obviously, he's familiar with it.
I can't hear you.
What's ether, Dicelo? Tell us. What is it?
The ether is unmanifested potential energy.
Unmanifested.
You say.
What does unmanifested mean?
Well, you have manifested and unmanifested. When energy's present, discharging or charging, that would be manifested energy. Where energy isn't would be unmanifested energy.
Like a battery?
So
Yeah, that would
that's
be
actually-
manifested energy.
It's not
Right.
discharging.
No, he's just calling everything else that isn't energy. It's still energy. It's not
Hang
there
on.
yet.
Right.
That's what he's
Let's,
saying.
could you give us an example
Pretty
of
much, yeah.
unmanifested energy? Daiso, could you give us an example of something that's an unmanifested energy in the real world?
Yeah, our entire realm is anywhere there isn't light or electricity. That would be the realm of unmanifested energy, waiting to be manifested.
But how do you prove there's somewhere that, for a start, that doesn't have light and doesn't have what you're terming as energy or electricity?
Can you repeat the first part?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about places that don't have light and don't have electricity or energy. I can't remember exactly what your exact words were verbatim, but how do you prove that these places exist in the first place? You have to prove these places exist before you could start making any stipulations about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm speaking. Yeah, I'm speaking completely terrestrial. I'm not speaking in regards to like outer space per se.
No, it's just saying where though.
Yeah.
Where? Where's the example?
Like I said, anywhere there
The
isn't
phenomenon.
energy would be the potential for energy to be.
There,
So the
where's the-
phenomenon is
where's the
something
phenomenon
not
for this?
happening then.
there
Hang on,
isn't
hang on.
there isn't any, Brian, because it's unmanifested. It's all in your mentality. It's not real.
Yeah, but that's the problem, Dyslo. If you can't give us a phenomenon, then we have nothing to study. So we can't make any inferences from nothing, if you understand what I mean.
His phenomenon
to-
are things
how
not
about-
Hang on 1 second, Alan. I'm not trying to be smart with you or put you down. My point is that if you can't give us something to study, then there's...
So here's this. Do you think energy can be created or destroyed?
Hold on, we're trying to establish what ether
What's
is.
energy?
We're trying
well,
to
that-
establish, hold on.
that ties in
you're
with
asking
it.
me a question.
Because
I'm
if you
asking for a
can't-
phenomenon.
We're trying to establish what ether
If you
is. and you're
can't
asking us about
destroy,
energy.
if you can't destroy or recreate energy, it's only manifested and unmanifested. That's literally what that's telling you.
You're talking about a cycle system where, like the first law of thermodynamics, neither matter nor energy can be created or destroyed. Well, that would make sense that energy is just transferred. But that doesn't
Right.
mean that there is an ether, if you understand what I mean. And that's an inference we make, from the effects we see, but we don't have a phenomenon that proves that, do we?
Right. Well, his phenomenon is
Hold on, he's
things
asking Alvin.
not happening.
He's asking him.
Yeah, Arwen, you're not really helping, man.
What's the phenomena is what he's asking you, Dicelo.
So again, you can look at a magnetic field, and the magnetic field seems to be coming out of nothing, creating this toroidal vector and going back into nothing in this reciprocal manner. It's all very well seen on the supercell or ferrocell of a magnetic field.
I think
Yeah,
it's
but we don't see a
ferrocell.
magnetic field. We don't see a magnetic field. We observe the effect that magnetism has, but we don't see it.
The field
Yeah, you
comes
can
from
you
a
can see it
magnet.
if you use
Hold
Arwen.
on.
Settle down, bud. Settle down.
Let him respond.
So you can see a magnetic field using a ferrocell, a supercell, or a magnetic viewing lens. So either one shows you the holography of the magnetic field.
That's a magnetic
So you
field.
just
But
so
that's a
you just
magnetic
proved it's
field.
manifest.
Okay, nobody's done. Hold on.
Well,
We've had some sort of bait and switch happen. We've asked what ether is. Now you're saying, well, we can see magnetic fields. So what? At the end of us
Yeah.
accepting that we can see magnetic fields, we accept ether?
Yeah, magnetic field comes from the ether.
Comes from the ether. Right.
Right.
So the magnetic field isn't the ether showing us an example of the unmanifested energy. The magnetic field isn't that. You're saying it's come from it. So what's the
Magnetic field is a constituent of the ether. Yes, this is an example of something coming from nothing and going back to seemingly nothingness. This is what
But
a
it comes from
toroid
a
is.
magnet. It comes from a magnet. It doesn't come from
Hang on.
nothing.
No, the magnetic
Where
field.
do I
The magnetic field
see
is
this?
separate from the
You out
magnet
of your
itself. A
freaking
magnet.
Arwen and Brian,
mind.
hold on. Just let me
Oh man,
respond.
I can't do this. You guys
So
just
I'm
talk
keeping
all over me.
control.
today.
Chill out. I'm keeping him under control. Go ahead.
Yeah, so a magnetic field is ab extra to the magnet itself. Okay, you got two different things there. You have a magnet and a magnetic field. The magnetic field is not the magnet, and the magnet is not the magnetic field.
No, but you're saying the magnetic field comes from nothing, and Arwen's response was it comes from the magnet.
No, the magnet sets up the magnetic field, and the magnetic field comes from counter space. That word you guys love so much. This
What?
this 0 point nexus of essentially a nothingness, so to speak. But yeah, just go look at a supercell, a ferrocell. You can see that that dark circle in the center where everything seems to be centrifugally coming out of and diverging back into the centripetal nexus of this hole, so to speak.
But that's an
And
effect that you
those two
create
things
with
have a
the...
charge.
That's an
Sorry,
effect
Nick.
you're going to create with a magnetic field. So for the audience's benefit, you can do it with things like blood because of the high iron content, right? Smear it over a lens, put it over a magnetic field, and then you can see this, what you're describing, looking three-dimensional on this lens. However, that's an effect that you're creating, and then you're saying that what you can see in this effect that you describe is as a result of counter space. I mean, if I rig up an infinite mirror, can I say that you can see through the edges of time, and the result of the infinite mirror is a result of that because I've rigged it up to do it? I say no, but just because you can see a magnetic field through a ferrocell doesn't mean that you've got counter space. That's a step too far.
Well, if you look at that magnetic field, like I said, it's seemingly coming out of this empty space in the center, creating that toroidal vector, and then going back into that hole of where there's nothing. You don't see anything.
That
there's
isn't
no
what you
light.
see.
It's like
You mean
literally
the
just a
magnet?
black
Hold on,
hole.
just one mild correction. That isn't what you see. That's an effect that's induced in a ferrocell if you introduce it to a magnetic field. That isn't what you see. It's a next level effect that you've induced by way of a ferrocell to see a reaction of the magnetic fields at a spectrum that's visible to you by way of an interaction with the, in the case that I gave with blood, the iron. That's what you're actually seeing.
Well,
now that might look
like I said, you don't.
That might look a particular way, i.e., it's going to this point in the central space of nothingness, but that's just what it looks like in the ferrocell, though, right?
Well, whether it looks like it or not, I mean, you can take a Gauss meter and measure this, and you get no magnetic flux at the center of a magnet because that's not where magnetism is. Magnetism lies at the outer extremity, i.e., the plane of inertia between these two poles, and that's the true magnetism.
I agree
If you
with
ever
all of
take
that.
a magnet,
I agree.
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, if you ever take, okay,
but that doesn't give you counter space or ether. We're just arguing about magnetism now, or agreeing about what magnetism is and how it can be described or viewed.
magnetism, light, and electricity all come directly from the ether.
Why?
Can't for us.
Why and how so? What makes you say that? What proof is there of either? You haven't told us what ether is yet, but we have talked about what magnetism is and does and how it can be viewed. Now you're taking that step too far to say that's because of ether. Why?
Ether's a combination of two fields, a dielectric and a magnetic field, inducing one another, either to create electricity through induction or light. So you can't have light or electricity without the magnetic component and the dielectric component simultaneously.
But the magnetic and dielectric components are very easily qualifiable. Where's the ether bit in that?
Well, that's precisely what the ether is. It's these two fields in unison that are inseparable from one another. It's the yin and yang of the entire universe.
Sounds like gravity to me.
Hold on, no, it doesn't. So you're saying that there's two fields that are interacting with one another in our general day-to-day existence. What are those two fields?
Precisely.
What are the two fields?
The dielectric field and the magnetic field.
And you're saying that the combination of the two is ether or creates ether?
The combination of the two is ether. Counter space would primarily be the dielectric field, and everything phenomenally existent would be pertaining to the magnetic field.
Why?
Because everything in existence has a magnetic component.
Okay. Wouldn't it be more realistic to then ascribe it to magnetism full stop?
You can't get magnetism without the dielectric field. The loss of the dielectric field is what creates magnetism to begin with.
And you say there's a dielectric field everywhere?
How does the loss of a dielectric field create magnetism?
Pretty much. The magnetic field, anything existing phenomenally, the magnetic field is overridden the dielectric field. So it's kind of like an arm wrestling match where you have the dielectric in one arm and the magnetic in the other. And anything phenomenally existence, the magnetic field is utterly dominated the dielectric field. And things like a black hole per se, that would be where the dielectric field has overridden the magnetic field.
What? So
A black
that was my
hole?
next question. Where do we experience this arm wrestle winning in terms of the dielectric field? And your answer to that is a black hole.
Yeah, or the center nexus of a magnetic field that you can see within the supercell. That center nexus would be the dielectric field.
Okay.
The outer
so you're saying,
extremities.
okay, let me just get it straight. So the interaction between dielectric field and magnetic field is what you're calling ether. And you're saying the only place that you can see the result of the dielectric field is where it's overcome the magnetic field. And the only place that occurs is when you view a magnet through a ferrocell or a black hole, correct?
Or if you want to separate an electrical circuit, you can separate the magnetic from the dielectric field, as Eric Dollard's done in a few experiments.
What did he do?
It's pretty complex. I can post the video if you'd like to go over it. But essentially, yeah, he separated the magnetic from the dielectric in an electrical circuit.
Could I ask a pertinent question?
I just want to know what the dielectric bit is. Okay. When you say he separated it, what did he? What was the end result? Did he have a bag of dielectric field? What was the end result to say here's the dielectric bit being separated? What did he actually do?
It's been a while since I watched the video, but he set up a circuit. Trying to remember how he did it, but it was essentially he kind of daisy chained this circuit in such a way where you had the dielectric field on one end of the circuit, the magnetic on another end.
Hold on. So you're starting with having this dielectric field on the one end of the circuit. You've said that the only way we can see it is in the counter space of the magnet that you're observing with its field and the lens with a bit of blood on it, or a black hole. Now you're saying this circuit with Dollard starts with the dielectric field. What's that? What's that bit? Why are we doing anything?
I don't know if it starts with the dielectric field. He just set up the experiment in such a way to show that
I really hate to do this to you. Stop. You said he starts with the dielectric at one end. Those were your words verbatim.
He starts with an electrical circuit and separates the dielectric to one end.
Separates it to one end. What does that mean? What's he got? What's at one end? What is it at the end? The one end.
I think he only measured it using some sort of a meter device.
Measured what?
Getting a lot of background.
Measured what? What did he measure? What was it he was measuring? A cup of what?
No, he measured the dielectric component within the electrical circuit at one end of this experiment. Like I said, I could post a video if you'd like to see it. Otherwise,
we're there with you telling us about the dielectric and the magnetic interacting. We're at a point where you can say, I can qualify what dielectric is. He separates it out and has got it at one end. What's he got?
Like I said, I think he's only generating values to quantify the measurement of it. It's nothing
measurement of what
that you can pick up.
The measurement of what?
The measurement of the dielectric field within the circuit.
And what is that?
the primary field of the conjugate fields that I've just explained.
You haven't explained what it is. If you describe the magnetic field, I can describe it in various different ways. How I can interact with it, how you've described how you can view it through a ferrocell. Those are ways of saying, well, this is what it is. And this is what that which I'm describing it as does. So in terms of the dielectric separation, what is it?
The dielectric is the capacitance potential of counter space, essentially. So the dielectric loss is defined as magnetism, and increasing potential terminating towards and into counter space is so defined as an...
So I'm losing track. The dielectric loss. What?
Dielectric loss.
So,
yeah,
stop. I haven't asked my question. What is the dielectric bit and what's it losing?
Well, I just told you that. I said dielectric is the capacitance potential of counter space.
What's counter space? How's he measuring the potential of counter space? What is that? What does it look like? What is it physically?
Well, that's the thing, is it doesn't have a Cartesianal locus of physicality. It's the anti-physicality. It would be, so essentially there's only two dimensions in nature. You have spatial and counterspatial, or more accurately, dimensional and non-dimensional. Counter space is the non-dimensional, the non-physical entity that everything is premised from.
I see. So you're saying he separates out counter space into the dielectric, and that's non-physical.
Right.
How the hell is he measuring it then?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. It's been a while since I watched the video. If you'd like, I can DM it or post it in main chat, and you can analyze it and either throw it out in the trash can.
I want you to tell me. You've said he separated it out and he's measured it with a certain specific tool. I've listened along.
Right.
I've paid close attention. Then you've told me that the thing that's being measured is non-physical. So what's the tool measuring then?
Right. I mean, that's a great question. Like I said, Nathan, unfortunately, it's been a while since I've seen this particular video. I was scratching at the walls to try to give you an example. I could provide you the video link and you can make better sense of it or decide to discard it.
This is your claim.
That's what I have.
You've got a field permeating the entirety of existence that's only demonstratable, according to you, by Dollard separating out non-physical and measuring it. Okay, I can just scratch through that because there is no measurement going to measure non-physicality. Right, this is nonsense. If you can't spot that and you're like, no, go and refer to the video. No, I'm going to do your own work for you. Right, you've just reached the point of nonsense. We've got to the point where you've described what measuring counter space involves. And it's non-physical. So there is no tool or measurement that Dollard's going to be making of this. That's a fact. Right? The only other two examples you've given me are looking at a magnet with a ferrocell and a black hole. And based on that, you're going to say this permeates our entire existence in the magnetic field. And the only existence that you can detect are when the counter space has won the battle, and that's visible at the centre of a magnet or black hole. That's what you've got to convince us with. It's weak.
Well, it's hyperlogical, so that's logic necessitates, using retroductive logic.
What the fuck?
We deal with physics here. The physical.
I think we entered the
Logic necessitates using retro what?
Retroductive logic.
Retroductive logic. Logic necessitates using retroductive logic. Do you have premonitions of flashbacks?
Why don't you tell us about your photons to quantum? It's really funny. It's really funny how you
come on, don't do that. Don't do that. Die slow.
Quantum theory, but you dismiss science at every other step of the way. It seems real suspicious.
Science. Stop. You had a jab at Arwin. It was all fair game, right? It's just the same coming back your way. But you've had a much better crack at the whip, to be fair. I'm not digging out Arwin either. But I'm just saying, you've had a fair crack. But we have reached the point where you're talking about Dollard as the only claim to be science of this stuff. And it's definitely not dealing with a natural phenomena. He's creating a little gadget and saying he's measuring something that's non-physical. That's what's actually happening from what you've told me. So, I mean, at this point, can you not concede that that's weak?
Yeah, I agree.
you
That's
would
pretty
think-
weak. And maybe I misspoke. Maybe it wasn't necessarily a quantified means of measurement rather than a localization of it. So,
It.
again,
We're back to this
since
again.
I
Okay,
watched the
okay.
video.
Of it. What's it?
Counter space, dielectric field.
Non-physical.
Non-dimensional.
Not
even.
only non-dimensional, so not dimensionally detectable, not even physically detectable, but you believe that Dollard's
you can
contained
detect
it at the end of one end of his circuit, right? You've got Dollard with this at one end of his circuit, haven't you? He's got it at one end. No, he hasn't. He's just making this stuff up.
That's a possibility. It's
Yeah,
a
that's why.
possibility we've all been duped, but that's why we're here.
No,
right? To
we
try to make
haven't.
sense
No,
of
we
things.
definitely haven't. Because when we claim science, we understand that the principles of science start with a phenomena. They don't start with an idea of something that permeates everything in the known existence of the universe and interacts with magnetism, so that you can babble on about bloody magnetism like
You'd rather subscribe
Wheeler
to
does.
particle wave duality? That's what you want to be left with?
I don't subscribe to particle wave duality.
You don't, do you? I thought you're all about the photon.
What's that got to do with a wave?
That's a particle wave duality.
No, it isn't.
Das Lichtbahn. Yes, that's what Einstein called your photon, a particle wave duality.
Well,
That's
he's
what
wrong.
he's labeled it.
He's wrong.
He's not even saying it right.
Okay.
This is what
something
science
can be a
calls it.
particle
It's
and a
not.
wave.
It's not what
Is that you're
science
saying?
calls it. That's what maths calls it. It's a probability distribution, aka wave function. That's a maths term, not a science term.
A wave of what?
A wave of distribution of probability.
A wave
You
of
realize that's
function.
nonsense, right?
No, it's just a mathematical
You
description. It's like
always
language.
misinterpret the word wave in this
Wave
context,
function.
dude. I don't know why you haven't got this by
There's
now.
nowhere you can show me a
Dude.
wave of itself. A wave is what something
It's
does.
a wave
not
of a
what something is.
function. It's not a physical
You guys
description.
are
It's a
reifying
wave
the essence
Okay,
of
let me try and explain
nothingness
to you.
right here.
That's okay. It's okay. I don't mind explaining what a wave function is. Okay. So if I've got a BB gun, yeah, and I fire it, but it's not rifled. Do you understand? So every time I fire a BB out the barrel of the gun, it's going to fly off and hit a wall. Yeah. In fact, let's make it paintballs, even better. So I've got a paintball gun, and it's very inaccurate. And I fire the gun, and it hits the wall right slap bang in the middle. Yeah, one paintball. Now, when I then fire the paintball the second time, instead of hitting dead center, it hits 2 inches off to the left. Right? Then I fire a third paintball, and this time it doesn't go in the middle or the left, it goes to the right. Then I fire a fourth paintball, and it hits the middle. So I think, okay, it seems more likely that the next paintball's going to hit the middle. 2 have hit. So I fire 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth hit paintball, and it goes far left, 4 inches off to the left. Okay, you with me so far, Dicelo?
Yeah, I'm following you.
Perfect. What you are describing mathematically in terms of the likelihood of where the next paintball will hit is a probability distribution. Do you understand why it would be called that?
Right. It's like a way of predicting. Yeah.
Right. Do you know what another name for a probability distribution is?
Prediction.
A wave function.
Yeah. I don't know if I did that.
Yeah,
but
it's not a
anyhow,
wave. Sorry, there's no waves. If I describe those paintballs hitting that wall with my probability distribution, aka wave function, tell me, given that I can describe the probability distribution, aka wave function, where's the wave?
The problem is that you're asserting light as a small package, a BB or a
Got nothing to
paintball,
do with
so to
wave
speak.
function. Nothing to do with this argument about wave, particle. No. These two things aren't linked in any way. It's a misapprehension about a mathematical, not scientific, description of probability distribution that is called, the title is Wave function. That's what it is. Mathematical
So I can
description of
use
what I
that.
describe with paintballs.
I can use that term for paintballs, or is that term specifically for light?
Specifically for my example of paintballs hitting a wall and how they will distribute on that wall by way of probability. That description
That's fine.
is a wave function.
That's fine. I can accept that. What I
Right.
can't accept is this being used in terms of light, and
Why
that's
not?
that's what this is derived from,
Okay.
right?
How
Or
is
am I
it?
wrong?
Well, you tell me. How is wave function being used to describe light?
Well, they're trying to give the individual light photon some sort of a conscious choice that it takes, which is absurd in my opinion.
Nope. That's not how light's being described as a wave function. So you object to this description, but you don't really understand what it is or what it means, given that I have only explained to you in the most dumbed down terms about 3 minutes ago. Yeah, you don't know what it means, so why are you disagreeing or arguing about it? You don't understand it.
I heard you guys discuss it, and you guys say that light will take a certain path depending on its choice. Like either it'll go down one slit or the other.
Wrong.
You don't understand
That's
why
incorrect.
that is.
That's incorrect. You're talking about something totally different now. Probability distribution, aka light diffraction. Light diffracts. That's something that happens. Light does do that. Yeah, diffraction of light, that's probability distribution. That's wave function. It's got nothing to do with the experiment you're now bastardizing into this. We're not talking about the double slit when we talk about wave function collapse. That's something else. That's not this.
You're talking about a single unit of light inductance, i.e., your photon. Like
Right.
you can't get this with a consistent beam of light.
Are we? Because you say so, who's only learned out what wave function is 3 minutes ago. What's wave function collapse?
Again, this is all quantum mysticism. This isn't my forte, but go ahead and enlighten
It's
me.
a pretty important detail given it's the naturally occurring phenomena. It's the thing that's being studied, but you didn't know that. But you're going to knock the double slit and say that it's describing, what did you say? How the light decides something? You haven't got a clue what you're talking about.
Wait, he called this mysticism,
You're using
and I had to
photons
listen to
do
that
this,
shit.
not consistent light.
Right, you're telling me what I'm using photons for. No. The double slit studying wave function collapse. Do you know what that is? No, you don't. I've already asked.
Can you do it?
What's
you do
wave
it with a
function
consistent
collapse?
beam?
Sorry, what's wave function collapse? Other than the natural
The
phenomena being studied.
probability of the wave function.
No, that the probability of the wave function isn't wave function
Fraction of
collapse.
light.
No, that's not wave function collapse. Just concede you don't really understand this stuff. Now, I don't understand Ether, but I am happy for me to take you by the hand and lead us to the logical inconsistencies in what you claim with Ether that you do understand better than I. It doesn't mean it's consistently going to, pad out for you when you claim it. But you're knocking something that you simultaneously don't understand, and we do. You've got misapprehensions about the particle-wave duality. Again, because of some nonsense that Einstein, just some guy, came up with. He's just some guy.
Can you do this this wave collapse function with a consistent beam of light, or does it take individual
What is that?
packets of light?
What is it? What's wave function collapse? What is that?
You just said it. It's the diffraction of light.
No, that's diffraction. Diffraction can be qualified mathematically as a wave function. You can describe light diffraction as a wave function. You can qualify it mathematically, right? Like me with my paintballs. Yeah? A whole subset of what you call wavelength is derived from that, by the way. Another mathematical description called wavelength. There's no waves involved in that either, by the way. So what's wave function collapse?
It's a probability.
No. Probability is probability.
This is embarrassing.
Just don't knock this stuff. Tell us that we've got it wrong about photons and stuff. Because if you had a good grasp on what it was, I'd be okay with the criticism. But you haven't. So please don't.
Do you believe in photons, Nathan?
Dude, you've never even looked into this material. Ever.
You're talking about another mathematical description.
I'm asking a simple question. I mean, do you believe in the existence of individual photons?
It's a description. That's what it is.
Oh, I don't. That's fine. But is it an accurate description?
I think it's a reasonable description. Wave, on the other hand, isn't as a description of what light does and how it behaves.
What a photon is, or what light is not relevant to the actual effect that is being discussed, which is wave function collapse.
Right.
Which is a naturally occurring phenomenon.
Right, light diffracts. That's a fact. That is a fact that you can observe in nature. So
I don't have a problem with that.
Unlike ether, there's nothing studyable. There's no, oh, well, light does diffract. There's a phenomena I can study. Light's doing that. Well, what about how you describe light as a photon? It doesn't really matter. I'm talking about how that light that's currently distributed in probability can be caused to collapse into a certain pattern. Those are your 2 bars in the double slit, by the way. Not like my paintballs distributed through probability. Fire through one hole, hits at one point behind. That's certainty.
Well, this is a confusion of quantifiability and qualifiability. Quantifiability would be the photon and how you would measure it. Qualifiability is the experiment. But I don't see where he has a complaint on either at this point.
He's got a problem with the convention. The convention that's used to describe light as a photon, he has an objection with. And to be perfectly honest, I don't have an issue with you having a problem with that convention. No worries. But maybe you can explain why you've got an issue with that convention, other than just not liking it.
Because science ultimately is supposed to be getting to an explanation about said phenomena, not just like using baseless descriptions to like validate particle interaction. And to me, like science today is just atomist and materialist seeking to quantize everything into these discrete particle interactions rather than understanding the field dynamics thereof.
What field dynamics? You said it's only reasonable that science studies phenomena, but light does behave in a certain way. It diffracts. Light diffraction is a phenomena you can study. It's something that you can put your finger on. You can show people.
I don't have a problem with that.
Right, but that's what they're studying in the double slit experiment.
Well, not necessarily. In the double slit, they're presuming the nature of light by setting it up in such a way to have the outcome fall within their paradigm of convention, and that's fallacious in my opinion. That's not a true experiment.
They're just shining a light through a hole.
No, they're shooting individual BBs.
Doesn't make
light,
any
so
difference.
These,
it makes no difference.
Gun.
It doesn't make any difference if you send an absolute shit ton of light through a double slit or one at a time. Makes no difference.
Well, it does to me, because this is how they get off by asserting particles and giving the viewers the idea that light is this packet of a particle wave duality, so to speak.
Not at all.
What?
Not at all. In the double slit, they're not leaning on anything other than the observed phenomena, which is wave function collapse, and the presumed cause of the effect. They're not... Yes, you can use certain aspects of the setup to describe light in a certain way, but that has nothing to do with the experiment. Just like John explained a minute ago in terms of the qualification of what you're describing light doing versus what it actually does and what you're actually studying. It doesn't matter how you describe the light as moving. You can argue all day about whether or not light has got a journey when you shine a light on one side of a hole and see it on the other. Well, that isn't relevant. What is relevant is when it's shined through a gap, an aperture, the light breaks apart, diffracts, and then when you know which hole it goes through, it doesn't do that anymore. That's it. That's all that's being studied. How the light got from A to B isn't relevant in the experiment. It's not really important. And you're right to question it. We do also. We do the exact same thing we debate all day long about. Does light actually have a journey? You know, we do question the same things. But it's misplaced when you say, well, the experiment is saying that light is a packet. Is it? No. You can describe a packet of light passing from the light source to the receiving end, i.e. the sensor. But that's just shining a light through a hole. You know, you can describe it in the most eloquent way possible as a packet, if you like. Does it matter? When it goes through the hole, it diffracts. Why doesn't it do that when you know which hole it goes through is all you need to know the answer to.
Right, it's just a
It's
very
been fun,
short
Nathan.
blip
I just
of
pulled up
light.
to my job. I appreciate you being polite and having a discussion with me and not chewing me up too bad.
No, it was wonderful. And thank you for taking the time with Aether.
Yep, I'll be listening while I work, guys. So,
Very good. Very useful teaching tool to people who are listening.
That was a lot better than in the past because there was less argument, there was more clarity. So there was
Agreed.
less butting of heads.
Agreed. Well done, Nathan.
This guy, I just, the way, like, he had a relatively clear overview over what he was thinking, but just like jumping to conclusions and then rerouting like situations, like the experiment, like, oh, it's because they were having something in mind. No. Those types of ideas and theories, particle wave duality, that comes afterward, right? The experiment is just about the experiment. It's about the phenomenon. All those other factors don't really play a role into it because it's about what actually happens. And then the idea is the formulas come afterward based on what actually happens.
Yeah, but Arwen, in fairness, right, to dice law, right, most flat earthers ended up basically shunning and hand waving away all science together because we ended up viewing it as a lot of mathematics that work within the atomic model. And, you know, it was a lot of stuff that because there was so much there's more pseudoscience than real science being shown to the world. So, you know, we ended up just hand waving away the whole lot. Whereas this is a situation where, you know, Dyslow is questioning something that he views as possible pseudoscience, and Nathan is pointing out where he has flaws there, that he should maybe have better understanding of it. That this is not very likely not part of the pseudoscience that he lobs it in with. We've all been there. I hand waved away science. I just myself, I went, science is a load of nonsense at one point. Until QE came along, as far as I was concerned, most science was just rubbish, made up stuff, and people just making up stories. Because it is most of what we're given.
Right, it's not science. That's the point. That was the point that we needed to learn, and QE brought that. I agree.
Yeah, what science is.
It's that pseudoscience is a thing, is what we had to kind of get to terms with. Because most people, when you say pseudoscience, like, they don't know what that means. They don't know. They're like, it's just science. They don't know there's a branch of science that has no validation that's being postured as science. I encounter that a lot when talking to normies or coworkers or whatever. They don't know what pseudoscience is.
Yeah, because people who promote pseudoscience, if they're dishonest, whether they are outright intentionally dishonest or just won't accept it, they are promoting pseudoscience as science. That's the problem. You know, that's being promoted as science to the world, when the truth is that what 80% of what the world is getting is pseudoscience. It doesn't have a phenomenon to begin with. To do anything with, to study or
culturally
prove
normalized.
Right? Let alone scientific validation at the end. You don't even have a phenomenon. It can't even start.
Yeah, it can't go anywhere. Without the phenomenon, you got nothing. If you don't have anything to observe in the natural world, then you can't claim stuff. You can't make claims, can you?
I thought that was quite boring myself. I like when Dyslow gets a little spanking.
Well, I'm just feeling much better about myself right now, right? Like, he was all like, oh, look at
you didn't prove your claims either, buddy.
And I'm like, no, I'm just going to be very straight and honest and kept it short, right? And he's just endlessly blabbering on, admitting half the way, like, yeah, I don't know anything about this, but I'm going to argue it now. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, but you can't say he has absolutely no understanding of things. It's just that his
No, he didn't know.
understanding
He
of
didn't
things
know
is not
anything
all
about
of
the
it
double
correct.
slit experiment. He didn't know
He
what
said
it
double
was.
split. I heard it.
Yeah.
I heard it too.
Kick him out.
It's a slip of the tongue.
Did I hear double split?
Yeah, I said it.
Did he say did he say it was a split of the tongue?
I said slit.
Off with his head.
Yeah. Yeah, but look, I mean, there was a conversation had. I mean, Dice Low is going to look at maybe the double slit a bit differently now. Maybe he'll look into it a bit differently now. Because there's a conversation had rather than an argument. You know,
Just that harmony thing.
Is this an underhanded blow at me? Because there wasn't an argument. What are you trying to say?
I'm just saying there's normally an argument because there's normally.
I think Neil's just salty.
Yeah, it was just on both sides. Like, but Daiso didn't do the things that would normally cause you to get angry. So there was no need for it. There was a conversation. When Daiso didn't know something, he had to eventually say, "Well, I think it's this," or "I didn't know." And he said, "Well, he couldn't prove something to do that what he was calling an experiment from that man's video." He said he couldn't remember it, and he wasn't sure if that proved it. You know, so there was some concessions made. So
he had a level of modesty. He did.
There were more audience members, if not all of them, who understood everyone's position because it didn't get out of hand, and Nathan did a good job.
Yeah, it was solid, Nathan.
I think he just got his jabs out on Arwin before he started talking to me.
I think we're getting a little soft here on Flat Earth debate.
No, I think, like I say, he just took it out on Arwin first.
You did well, Nathan.
The combative part of him wanted to get it out. He wanted to get that out of his system before talking about Aether, so he picked on holograms.
Yeah, with a theory that he didn't know I had. Like, he thought, oh, holographic. Arwin is about holographic, but he didn't even know what my idea was, and he uttered something that has nothing to do with what I deal with. Like,
he described the image being representative of having all the parts of the whole, but the holographic projection being like a negative of the projected image of the whole, so it doesn't have the physicality to it. I can't remember how he described it to quote him verbatim, but I thought he was quite eloquent in that, actually. No offence, Owen, but better than you did.
What, his counter space? You thought that was great?
No, before.
Dimensional.
No, before
the
that.
hologram.
The hologram stuff.
Yeah, but that's
Just to let everyone know.
That's like, dude, that's like theorist stuff that I don't deal with. That's like astrophysics almost.
That's
You do
great.
that all the time. What are you talking about?
That's just all theory. I deal in fact.
Hey,
Dude,
we have another theory in
That's
chat.
not fair, man. Come on.
And
Dude,
we have another
man.
theory in chat. And the sponsor of that theory, who's putting his flag in the ground, he has tests of special relativity. Hoimar, come off mute and share your test of special relativity for us, please.
Test. That means experiment.
Yes? Please,
cool.
Hoimar, go ahead.
Retro.
Oh, Hoimar! Before I delete your horse shit, come off mute. It's going to end like your elevation angle train wreck. With your 3 different horizons, it's going to end sort of like that. That's probably why you're not coming off mute, right? Why you here? Why you here, clown show? Clown show baltard that can't support his claims? Like your average village idiot? What's your problem? Right? Cat got your tongue. You fucking clown.
chat
How about
scam.
that? Is that good to rev things up a little bit?
That even things out. After me being commended for doing so well and such an even-handed job, you behaving like the schoolyard bully evened it up nicely.
Can I have
It's a good
can I have a
compliment.
damn compliment, please?
What's your problem? Give me your pocket money.
What? The fuck?
Okay, can I try? Hoimar, can you please come and tell us all about your experiment that proves relativity? Was it QE? Was that it?
Special.
What the freak? Whatever the hell it was. Can you please come and tell us all about it, please?
I don't even know what that is. What is special relativity? Hoimar, can you fill me in?
It's the grandpa you really love.
No, special relativity is when you're like, your family tree don't branch, and you got a cousin that's also your sister. That's special relativity.
Is it any better than counter space?
Well, hang on.
That is
Hoymar,
Einstein compatible, what you said there, John. That is
hang on.
Einstein.
If Hoymar has something and he truly believes that this is correct, there shouldn't be a problem. If this lad has something and he has a phenomenon and he has support for this phenomenon, a naturally observed phenomenon, and he can show the naturally observed the natural cause of this natural effect. Well, what's the problem? I have no problem with it.
There is none, but he's not coming on.
Exists, I'm not going to attack the man. If he wants to come in and have the conversation, grant.
But he's not coming in.
Because trolls don't debate. They just come to try to mess up a show. They never have the courage to come on.
No, that's not true. Hoymar has talked to us before.
Yeah, he has. So,
okay. Well, then, prove me
I
wrong.
remember him telling us all about a horizontal plane, apparently, that he needed to measure.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So now I want the next story.
Yeah, but I don't see. I mean, my point being is that if Hoymar has something and he's genuine about it and he really does feel he has something, then I'm not going to shout him down. I'm not going to shout over him. I'll try and leave it happen as clearly as it did with Dice Flow. Leave it happen. It's like. But there's no point in coming in for Hoymar, who may be listening or may not be listening to this now. There's no point in coming in just to get smart with us and, beg the question and, avoid questions. And, if you're going to come in with something, grand, but come in with it and accept if you can't prove it. And
I
if
don't
you
know.
can't
I
prove
don't
it,
even
we
know
have
what
to
special
accept that you
relativity
can.
is. So, he can get smart with me if he wants, because I really don't know what it is.
It's what Einstein did with his cousin/wife.
God, don't tell me. I don't know what it is. Hoymar can tell me.
I just been a smart aleck.
Oh, you were? Oh, I thought you were going to tell me.
Yeah, I was just saying it's what Einstein did with his cousin/wife. That's special relativity.
Yeah, Einstein married his cousins twice.
Nothing wrong with that, according to Taboo Conspiracy. Apparently, a lot of royals do it. Keeps the money in the family. Very low percentage chance of abnormalities and all that sort of stuff. So, go ahead, marry your cousin.
Twice.
But that's special relativity.
Is it? Is that E equals MC square?
Is that really special relativity? Marrying your cousin?
No.
Twice.
No.
Twice. That's the C squared and EMC squared is marrying her twice.
See, this is the part I don't understand. We're constantly told, oh, we don't let people speak, and we're sitting here like begging the guy, like, come tell us all about whatever it is that you're going to tell us about, and it's just crickets.
What is special relativity?
I think that has to do with the Earth rising up at 9.2 meters per second.
That's gravity, isn't it?
Yeah, you have general. I might be getting it backwards. I think general relativity.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
I don't know how to answer that. I already don't know what to say.
He was incorrect. So.
Let me just think about this for a second. No, I'm not kidding. I don't know what special relativity is. I just need a really educated baller to tell me.
Oh, you need a baller to tell you, so I'm not going to say anything. Okay.
I mean, if I don't know what it is, I need somebody to educate me, don't I? I'm just dumb. But you've kind of ruined that now with that last question, Kiwi.
Sorry about that.
It is their claim, though, right? They should define it. Right? Isn't that on them?
He's not playing ball. He's not playing ball. He just wanted to chat skank. He's like, what gives here? I just wanted to come in and chat skank about my faith. Didn't expect to be put on the spot. What's your problem?
In all seriousness, I would like.
Dude, it is E. equals MC squared. That's literally what it is.
Einstein married cousin twice.
Yeah, it is that formula. That is special relativity. Let me present it.
Yeah. You should have asked QE. QE, you should have asked Darwin. He's just literally gone and Googled it. I don't think Arwin understands what's happening. It's okay. I'll tell him later.
Damn it.
So
Back to
special
the
relativity is
ideal.
a theory, but then you said E equals MC squared. That's an equation. That's mathematics. We kind of have a problem right there, don't we?
What's M?
I'm just saying. There's one that's the elephant in the room so far.
Well, it's Einstein. E equals M married C cousin twice squared.
Yeah, I know.
I'm good.
But that's
What?
special relativity. It's like it must be a joke. He must have known it. He made a mathematical joke. Must have.
Well, we can move from special relativity to his theory on the ether since he was a supporter of it. Maybe he could tell us what it is. Huh?
Well,
Dicelo, where's your
in,
Einstein's ether at?
He's working now.
John,
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Sorry, I went and got some chow, man.
refractive curvature. Was that the same cousin or ether cousin?
Either way, it doesn't matter.
He is Einstein.
Either one of them.
In all seriousness, what's his M? What's M?
Married.
Mass.
Not married.
Married.
It's mass. It's on screen. I'm presenting it. It's right there.
Yeah. What's that? What's mass?
Oh, a Catholic marriage has a mass.
That's
Is that what it
that's the
is?
thing that gravity pulls on. Don't you know?
Go on,
What's
define
gravity?
mass. Let's hear what it
Yeah,
is. Arwin.
which gravity?
Which mass? What's mass?
The gravity.
What are all these things?
Hold on. The gravity that redistributes that mass. You see?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, what are those things again?
Are you saying that
according to
energy equals married cousin squared? Did somebody say that?
Einstein
Yep.
married
Greatest
cousin
equation ever.
twice.
Einstein married his cousin twice.
Yeah, historically true.
That's the fifth time that gag's got a laugh. Fifth time.
I'm sorry, I'm late to the
Oh.
party, man. I had to go get some chow. I told you.
I will laugh at that all day. E equals MC squared is Einstein equals married cousin twice. Thanks.
What I like is John managed to slip it in and I managed to play dumb without anyone picking up on it enough for it to get repeated 3 or 4 or 5 times.
Wait.
Every time you ask about gravity from now on, that's going to be my proof of it.
Einstein married cousin twice.
Yeah, it happened.
The gravity, no, special relativity doesn't have anything to do with gravity.
Yes, it does, because mass is part of it. And if mass is part of it, then that means gravity is assumed.
Mass is part of it. Where's mass at in general relativity?
Well, look, I'm presenting it. Oh, you might
In
be seeing it.
general relativity.
Oh,
I thought you,
Yeah.
yeah, you
I
looked
don't
up
know.
special.
You're a bit off base there, Aaron.
So I don't understand what that is. What's general
Just
relativity?
debate outside.
I don't know what you're talking about. If
Nathan,
only there was a
relativity,
baller
man.
here to educate us. So what's general relativity? I don't know what this crazy notion. What is this newfangled general relativity?
I'm presenting it right now.
See, this is when the baller steps in and you guys just don't understand. And then you present your case. Why
I
is it
don't.
you guys don't want to do this when
I-
we're asking?
I'm presenting it. The theory of general relativity says that the observed gravitational effect between masses results from the warping of space-time. See?
Yeah, but
See what?
that doesn't mean.
See
Owen's just got the general relativity definition up, that's all.
Well, the attraction is between him and his cousin, and you can't deny that.
What's warping?
His moral compass.
Oh, God, John.
Just because you read it, Darwin, doesn't mean you understand it. Flat Earther.
Yeah, I do.
Oh my God!
I understand it within the heliocentric framework. I understand what it's supposed to be representing. Yes, I do. I can't math it personally, but I get it.
So we've got special relativity, general relativity. What's relativity?
His cousins.
Obviously, kissing cousins.
Here's the theory of relativity.
Not the theory of it, just what is relativity? What's the definition of relativity? You had it a second ago, but it gave you a couple of legal definitions.
You want it on your mother's side or your family's father's side?
Cousins, not first blood.
Right, but which side?
I don't know. I'm paying attention to what Arwen's doing.
I think you're talking about relativity.
Oh, relative.
Thanks.
Well, if you think of space-time as his pants, you know what was warping.
Terrible.
Can you take them with you to another dimension? I mean, if you leave your
Unless
pants
you put them over
behind.
his shoulder.
Can you grandfather that in, though?
Look how they put that satellite there, right? I clicked, oh, Einstein. They just put a satellite there for no reason.
What's like a picture of that?
I'm pretty sure that's a drawing. An old one.
Oh, damn.
But it's just funny that I just like, oh, look at this. What does this mean? Oh, nothing special. What does that mean?
It has to be
and
Photoshop.
you click,
It has to be Photoshop.
Einstein, a satellite suddenly pops up.
The behavior of objects in space-time, and if he considered his pants space-time, they warped for his cousin. E equals MC squared, guys. It's proof.
Going to be the ending of the show, isn't it? What a terrible ending. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the thanks button, the PayPal link, all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!